still expecting him to be priority? Is he just not going to be seen at all?
He might still be seen, but it's definitely not a priority any longer. Both him and Blackfeather are still very strong, but it's not that must pick, must ban that we saw towards the end of update 2.9. So instead, it is going to be a Fortress as the first ban here from Qlash, and then Lyra gets taken off the board as well.
Absolutely. So Fortress as a ban, not something that we've seen on 2.9, but it's going to be Churnwalker, the first pick coming through for Qlash. So already this draft looking completely different to what we've been seeing in the Vainglory8 last update.
Yeah, for the most part, at least. Again, a couple of teams were putting emphasis on that Churnwalker, but it was few and far between. Qlash was not one of them. So interesting to see that they have now adopted the Churnwalker into their playstyle. Blackfeather is still a priority for the side of Raging Donuts, and this is a pick that is very likely to go onto Elohawk. He's played this one a lot in the past, but there is a chance that they kind of change things up. That's one of the strengths of this Raging Donuts lineup. It's very similar to what we used to see from Mouse Sports towards the end of the season, where they can play in multiple different roles and just kind of swap things around as needed once they're actually in game.
All right, so Rona going to be taken off the board here, and we'll see what Qlash are going to answer with. Is Batiste actually being banned away here? So one hard engagement banned and one disengagement banned by Qlash. I'm curious to see how they ran this one out, but there we go. We've got our first Lorelei locked on in.
We're not going to have to wait very long. I was wondering about maybe the hero pools, but Lorelei, she's got a pretty good hero pool going on with her kid. It's going to be interesting to see it come out for Raging Donuts right away in our first game.
She's certainly going to be splashing around. We'll see how that's going to pan out for Raging Donuts. And honestly, if you have pocket picks, if you have things like this Lorelei that you want to try out, maybe game one of a best of 5 is a good time to do that, because you've still got a little bit of boundary to play with.
Yeah, I've always felt like the first game of a best of 5 is the best game to try and, try out something perhaps. And not necessarily try, because I assume they have tried this, but to try at the competitive level, because even if you fall here, you do still have another game or two to rebound and get back on track. But there's the Qlash pick, or the Vox pick for Qlash. You might as well just call it the Qlash pick at this point, because it's so frequent that they go for the Vox. It's, again, Mercilli's most played hero, his best looking hero by far. So the fact that he's able to get that is a good sign for Qlash, because it's that comfort pick, that familiarity already onto their side.
Absolutely. That Vox, a very strong pick in the hands of Mercilli's. And we'll see what Agony is going to go for as well. Agony, often referred to as kind of the cornerstone of Qlash, and he's someone that they need to have a strong pick on. Is someone that is known for his Samuel in the past, a couple of other picks as well, but it's going to be Reza, the assassin, coming on through.
A little bit interesting to me to see the Reza pick, because typically when you have something like a Churnwalker, you want as much AoE as possible, but the Reza is very much single target. However, it is a lot of burst, and that's the other thing that works very well with the Churnwalker, is to have the large damage numbers coming out, so that when the chains spread the damage around, it just spreads that much of a bigger chunk, and also heals Churnwalker for that much more.
All right, we'll see how that's going to pan out, and if that is going to pan out for them. Obviously, Lorelei, exceptionally good at denying burst damage, exceptionally good at saving people with that water wall ultimate. Huge shield that you can give to an ally, so that could be a massive influence during those fights. Honestly, the ultimate, it kind of feels a lot like a Grace ultimate in terms of its influence during a fight.
And Rhyme is going to be the last pick, which is very intriguing. I think with Churnwalker into the Rhyme, you can actually deny a lot of the fortified health, because there's just constant damage getting shared through to him, and it can just chip away at that fortified health very effectively. But with the Reza there, this is just the side of Raging Donuts challenging this Reza, challenging Agony and saying, you know what, we don't think that you can win this matchup early, and if Rhyme gets ahead early, he is still very, very strong. It's just not as easy for him to get that massive lead in the early game like what we used to see.
I mean, that's the thing about Rhyme. Like, he's the kind of pick that if you can get that lead, even if you're not on a strong update, you can still just obliterate people. And the cooldown of Winter Spire is so low. And if you land that route with a Winter Spire, that's already half of someone's HP if you've got a few items under your belt. So it's time to talk about the pace of the game. How are we expecting these teams to be playing? Is there a team that you expect to have front foot forward at the start?
I feel like Raging Donuts are going to be a little bit more aggressive, just because they have this Rhyme pick, and trying to go into the jungle of a Reza should actually be a very strong facet for them. Plus, with the Lorelei, you can get that extra movement speed. You can make those ganks and such happen a lot quicker than what your opponents are expecting.
All right, we'll see if that is going to be the case and who is going to be able to push forward aggressively in this one. It's going to be the first game of our challenge battles. It is a best of 5, but it's our elimination games. Get in touch on Twitter with the hashtag Vainglory8 to let us know who you are supporting. It's Qlash versus Raging Donuts. It's time to get into game number 1 of our elimination series between these teams.
Thanks very much, guys. Me, Jaws, and Dowsy. I should introduce myself as well, not just say me, just in case everybody has forgotten. But it's me and Dowsy to bring you the action in this best of 5. Super exciting as well. Lorelei, we're finally seeing her picked up.
Yeah, we certainly are. It's going to be very fun to watch the first of the Lorelei coming onto the Vainglory stream. We did have a bit during the challenge battles earlier on in the week. Wasn't as successful as we were hoping for, but I'm expecting Aristocratic here. If he's pulling it out in such an important matchup, then it's well practiced.
She's quite an interesting hero as well when you think about it, Dowsy. That massive water wall that when she hits level 6 can save one of her allies from someone like a Reza, from someone like Disowned as well, getting a Torment or Trespass off. Pretty scary ability, and Fish Food as well. Her A, that clam that stuns people in place, is going to be perfect for when Agony wants to come out of that Nether Fort.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And when you pair a Lorelei with someone who can hard carry, it's very, very strong. You know, the ability to put the shield down and just speed them up, get them onto the enemy's carry. A Black Feather can hard carry, so this is going to be pretty fun to watch. Bit of fight breaking out.
Yeah, nice root action. Mercedes is going to go fairly low, gets hit by the clam as well, but Aristocratic going even lower. Disowned's going to chase him up, force the flask actually to keep himself alive. Disowned looking for another chain, doesn't quite find it on Raph, does manage to get the backs, and they will be able to secure Elder Treant first up, and a bit of their jungle as well.
Very good start for the side of Qlash here. You expect them to be coming into this matchup very dominant, considering the fact that they are at the top, the Vainglory8 team coming out of here. Lorelei, let's introduce her because she's new to competitive play. Her A ability, Fish Food, roots a target and has an AoE effect underneath it, so expect the CC stacking that can come out between the Lorelei and the Rhyme to be very strong. With her B, I forget the name of it, that's really bad of me, is able to basically speed up and slow down opponents, and also empowers her attacks, gives her extra crystal power when she uses her attacks, so it makes her very strong. Her ultimate Water Wall provides a huge barrier of health, and watch right now as she's going to look to try and root someone. Doesn't quite get it, but she places down her B. Ooh, there it is, nice. And you can see that root come through. What I expect that's going to come out of Raging Donuts is that Aristocratic's going to look to try and set up a root onto an opponent here. And then in comes Raph speeding through, lands an auto attack, gets the root off on his ability, and that's just going to make Donut's life really easy to just burst someone down. And if the fight starts going wrong, or if you want to send Donut on the Black Feather really deep, then you can just put that water wall on top of him. It will cleanse any stuns that's on top of him, and also it will just make him super tanky because of the huge barrier it provides as well.
That tankiness is going to help not only Raph, but it's going to help Donut as well on that Black Feather. If they do execute onto the back line, it's a big burst of HP, so Agony can't burst through them. Mercedes isn't going to do much damage either. Raph's trying to take this Elder Treant away, successfully does so as well. Agony going fairly low, but it will be Disowned actually rotating it down towards him, but also tanky he is. Does get tormented in. There's the splash down from Aristocratic to give Raph a bit of a speed boost as well. Perfectly coupled with this Rhyme, like you mentioned a minute ago, enabling to get in these fights a heck of a lot easier.
Oh, and then lane, it looks like Donut's in trouble as well. Looks like he should be able to survive popping that flask for himself. Mercedes doesn't have his available, and so the flask killing could just bridge the gap necessary. But right now you're seeing that great pairing between the Lorelei and the Rhyme. Lorelei really good into anyone who can chain CC with, as long as it's not a lance, and you know the lance is knocking you out of the AoE because of the fact that the biggest part of her kit is actually the AoE that goes underneath. The Piranha's chopping away does a significant amount of damage, especially if she's empowered it by standing in one of her pools. It's really, really strong. This Rhyme Reza matchup's very fun to watch, and historically it's been really difficult for Reza to play into Rhyme, but on update 2.10 with the Rhyme changes coming through, making him less about bursts and more about sustainable fight. I actually think that this is an update that Reza can a little bit more outplay a Rhyme. If you're able to use that Troublemaker, go through him and avoid those Winter Spires, which could generate the most fortified health, then there is the ability to take down the Rhyme, especially if you're landing your Scorcher Fire Starter combo onto the Rhyme before he sees you. You can get a lot of bursts done onto the Rhyme before you really get into a big fight. That's the way Reza wins these duels. Historically, not super good Reza into Rhyme. It's just on 2.10 might be slightly better. Realistically, this Reza's looking to try and burst down the Black Feather or the Lorelei. That's going to be the main target.
Well, the main target won't be much of a target for long. Lowhawk, Donut. I'm calling him that now. He's level 5 and he is soon to be level 6, and when that does come online, it's going to be all dive, it seems, from the side of Raging Donuts. Mercedes is kind of used to that, I'm going to be honest with you. The amount of times he has been on the backlash of Team Queso, just diving him on the back line, and Raging Donuts hoping to find the same thing. In fact, Lorelei going very low. First blood comes out, and Qlash find the execute. Agony picking it up.
Yeah, just as we said, Agony going to be looking to focus down the Lorelei. It's not over yet as they're going to dive the turret, but good dissuasion comes through. It looks like they should be able to hold onto their turret for now, but lots of damage has dealt by the side of Qlash. They've got a massive advantage just due to this Churnwalker Reza Vox combination. In the early game, they're able to more effectively team fight as a 3, whereas the win conditions of Raging Donuts in the early game is really single target damage and trying to blow a single member of Qlash up. I want to just introduce Donut to you guys, the Black Feather, because it's been some time since we've seen him playing in competitive. Used to play on Fluffy Chickens a while back. Might not be able to do it just now because Raph has found a Disowned.
Yeah, Disowned just going to use the boost. The splashdown's there for the speed boost. Vasili's caught on the back line as well. Raph is just pushing forward, doesn't really mind about all this damage. There's the fountain to heal him up. Vasili's diving, dodging, but the execute comes through from Donut, but it wasn't quite enough. Vasili's actually picks up a double kill. The resonance bounces, and even the clam didn't hit. Aristocratic has after fled to the deepest depths of the oceans at this point, as 2 of his carries did fall.
Yeah, and this is the strength of the composition from Qlash. Like we mentioned, their 3v3ing ability in the current state of the game is far better than Raging Donuts. You saw Raging Donuts attempt to find a singular kill. They weren't quite able to get it, and that was why Qlash were able to come out on top. Back to the Black Feather Donut here. You see his name, and if we can get an image just so you can see it, because it is a little bit confusing. His name is Ponchik in Russian Krylic. If you were to look up what donut is in Russian, you would see that the Russian Krylic text is very similar to what it is, but he goes by the name Donut. He's confused casters and viewers alike. People call him Elohook just because it looks a bit like Elohook, but he is called Donut, and if I had my way, I would have him change his name to Donut just for the sake of casting. But it's great to see him representing Russia here in the Vainglory8 and VGL. He wants to kill.
Jumps on again, hang on. The second Dowsy Valkyrie came out, but it just goes wide. Is there new nice re-engage there from Donuts? Let's try and get onto the back line, but that Netherform detonation will hit 3 people. Donuts still trying to kite back. Nice stun as well from the Clam. He is going to get dropped there as the Winter Spire finishes him off. Vasili's falling as well. It just means Disowned's left all alone here. Raging Donuts find their comeuppance and going to be able to push onto this turret.
Yeah, really nice catch there by Donut to be able to single out Vasili's, and then you see Aristocratic and Raph come in, and they're able to provide so much CC and lockdown and burst potential between them. And so that single target focus really coming through for Raging Donuts, and they're able to take down the Vox in a team fight. Then you have to feel that that is going to be a fairly easy going from that point. Agony has huge amounts of burst damage on this Reza, but he's not realistically going to be able to burst a 3-man team of quite tanky heroes, but if you consider Black Feather and the Rhyme going to become fairly tanky eventually. We also see Raph. He's got himself that Shadow Glass. Now, on 2.10, the CP ratios on Winter Spire did get nerfed a little bit, so there's been some discussion on the build paths that Rhyme should be going. Seems like a lot of people are still prioritizing this Shadow Glass just for the most stacking of fortified health that you can get at the beginning of a team fight, but I expect Dragon's Eye might become a little bit more popular as the update develops, just due to the fact that Rhymes are realistically not going to be outputting a huge amount of damage, and the team fights are going to go fairly long, and so you're going to get more bang for your buck later on in team fights. So it really just depends on what the Rhyme wants to do. If he really wants to get as much fortified health at the beginning of the fight as possible, then Shadow Glass is fantastic for that. But if you expect that team fights are going to be ongoing, then Dragon's Eye might creep into the meta a little bit.
Now we're hitting that level 6 mark. Aristocratic, he does have his water wall available now, so their dive potential is only going to be increased, but Disown just a level lead on him. He's had 3 assists, remember, so that extra XP. They are going to be able to, you know, trespass on top of Raging Donuts if they do want to go for this massive engagement. The best thing about this Churn Walker is the fact if you do hook 3 targets, the sustain comes out for him and his allies is just so strong. Raging Donuts going to have a bit of a tough time actually chomping through it, and He's actually on 3 items, just completing that monocle now just gives him an extra wave of damage. Disowned, Agony are a little bit caught out though. Rose offensive onto the back line. Agony still wanting to fight. There comes the fish food as well. He's going to stun up 1, and already Agony and Disowned are going to go down. Water wall not even needed in that case. Valkyrie did land, and that'll be the gold miner going over to Raging Donuts.
Look how effective a splashdown Lorelei's B is in these team fights. If Aristocratic lands a great splashdown, and by great I mean it lands on top of the enemies to slow them down whilst also being close enough to his allies to speed them into the team fight, then it allows Raph and Donut just to do so much work. Also makes hitting that fish food far easier, Valkyrie far easier, Winter Spire far easier, and the you know, kind of team fight takeover that can come through it is pretty insane. Right now we're seeing Qlash starting to fear this composition that Raging Donuts have drafted, knowing very well they have to step very cautiously in these team fights as not to be bursted down by either the Rhyme or the Black Feather. I think Raging Donuts are just going to continue the pressure game here, really want to try and get as much as possible off the map in these next couple of minutes, Jaws, because with the current gold lead they have from that gold miner with the single turret that they have, they are generating a massive power deficit. And if they can really snowball the game before this Kraken spawns, they're going to be in a good spot.
Oh, nice hooks from Disown, but Raging Donuts are just going to disengage and disconnect from the hooks. Disown just trying to fling them out, maybe looking for a little something. But the best thing about Aristocratic as well, like you said, is that splashdown, the ability of her and her team to get in and out of these fights, and Raph can land CC, and Donut has such an easy time getting on Mercedes, the main key target you'd have thought they want to actually take down. Agony is sitting on 2 items at this current moment in time, with Raph sitting on an Evil Harvest as well, so even he's more tankier in these fights. Splashdown, and the Valkyrie does hit. Agony's actually going to block it up, but the Trespass is going to get massively blocked by Aristocratic. They're going to jump straight onto Mercedes, wait for it all, silence them all, but will it matter? I don't think it seems to. Mercedes goes super low in the backline, and Disown just can't disengage quick enough. Has a triple chain going on as well, but Agony is all alone in this fight. He used the Torment to bring them closer to him to disengage for Agony, but Raging Donuts, they've already won the engagement.
Yeah, easily peasily, just able to single out Mercedes, and as soon as that Fox is dead, they have won the team fight. They're able to get the Rezra as well, then it's a good time for the Raging Donuts because they're going to be able to really take stuff off the map. Right now, Agony doing his best to secure his jungle, and he is able to do so, but the issue with team fights like this, Jaws, is they don't actually achieve much for Raging Donuts in their, you know, condition of being able to win the game. They need to be getting stuff off the map. The easiest thing to take is probably enemy jungle. After that, it's sentry. After that, it's turrets, you know, gold miner, Kraken. And so, you know, you need to be securing at least something. And in that team fight win, they weren't able to get anything off the map. So it's just a single kill. What it does do is put Mercedes off the map for a little bit. It means that CS deficits can be created. Farming has been so good so far that it's not even going to matter. So right now, Raging Donuts need to find a bit more of a better team fight where they're able to execute more, get more kills off if they really want to have an impact.
Well, Raph's coming in with the boots engagement. Nice route, actually, from Raph. They're going to find Agony. The clan doesn't quite hit, but the Trespass doesn't either. Valkyrie comes down straight on top of Mercedes, and he just gets dove on once again. Rose offensive will finish him off, and Agony now trying to disengage, but Aristocratic's going to be able to pop the Ward Treads, and now it's only Disowned. They're going to be able to hunt him down now with the aid of the splashdown. Valkyrie doesn't, well, the Fisher doesn't quite hit, but it doesn't really matter in the end. A nice route from Raph will finish him off, and that'll be 6 kills now for Donuts, and they find the ace.
Look at Donut's item prioritization. He has himself Atlas and Journey boots before a tier 3 offensive item, and it's just doing so much. The Atlas, of course, slowing down this double attack speed focused Vox build, as well as, you know, allowing Donut to speed and stick to the Vox like glue. Vox build, it's very controversial. Currently, there's a lot of discussion about what is the premier Vox build, but this one with crit, definitely not on the list. Probably would have benefited a bit more from a Sorrow Blade. If you're talking about 2.10, it's the breaking point nerf. You now require 160 damage per stack, up from 140, so that's 20 more weapon power damage per stack to generate stacks, and that really hurts your early stacking, which means, and that's kind of the part where Vox is basically being killed, is the early part of his stacking process. With a monocle, the early stages of the stacking is a 1 in 3 chance of getting 5 extra weapon power damage over Sorrow Blade towards the full breaking point. It's a little bit more damage, but it's still a 1 in 3rd chance of getting it. So Sorrow Blade would have provided him more consistent stacking, but it's not even about that. It's about how squishy he is. Doesn't have a metal jacket yet. Does have the Aegis to block the Atlas.
It is about staying alive, and that's what he's not going to do for long if he's not careful. There's the Netherform detonation. The Trespasser is going to get blocked. In fact, Raph actually gets stunned up by it, but he's already on Mercilli's. Donut's going to be able to isolate him as well. Nice root from Raph, and they already take him down. Mercilli's falls. Now it's Agony on the table, but Donut almost falls. In fact, he does to the Crystal Sentry. He finally finds the kill, but Raph is going to just be able to sustain through these fights. The Piranhas are coming out, locking up whoever steps on them. Splashdown is going to help him get closer to Agony, and he is out of energy and out of time. Disowned, the only one really on Qlash that's actually doing anything meaningful in these fights, and he's just pulling people left, right, and center. They do trade 1-for-1, Dazzy, but Raging Donuts, once again, it feels like they come out on top.
Yeah, they kind of do, because of the fact that they're taking Mercilli's off the map and really holding him back. Donut's only going to get stronger with his build. He's looking towards a Bonesaw 3rd item so he can cut through the armor that Mercilli's is desperately trying to get on in. The Kraken has now spawned, Jaws, and if Raging Donuts are to win basically a team fight by taking down just Mercilli's, and so the map then is 3-2, then Kraken is very simple for them to take. They have really good Kraken taking with the Rhyme. The Black Feather has really good Kraken securing with his Faint of Heart because of the max health execute damage it does, or missing max health I should say. And so it would really make Agony's life of stealing it pretty much impossible, and I suspect that they wouldn't even attempt it. So that's what I'm expecting Raging Donuts to be looking for right now, is just a singular kill onto Mercilli's. It allows them to take the Kraken off the board. In fact, though, if they just catch Disown like this, they'll go for it.
Hey, Disowned. Oh, hey, Valkyrie. That's going to be a 2-man Valkyrie. The city's already going fairly low, but a nice Trespass actually lands them all with a stun. Netherform detonation straight on top of Raph, but they need to be able to disengage from Mercilli's. Mercilli's using that fountain to heal up, but Lowhorn, look how much shielding he's got. Half his HP bar was his shield there coming through from Aristocratic. Mercilli's falls down once again at the start of the fight, and Agony kiting back, and now is only Disowned. He finds his 3rd death of the game, and that is Donut sustaining through the fights. No matter how much damage you do to this guy, he's always got Aristocratic to back him up. The Kraken's going to be on the board, and that'll be Raging Donut starting it up.
Like we mentioned at the beginning of the game, Lorelei paired with a hyper carry of a laner is deadly. Think of your Black Feathers, think of your Ronas, even Idris. These kind of melee weapon power laners that just like to jump onto the back line, take so much damage and try and execute the carry are going to love having a Lorelei on their team. The water for the ultimate just provides so much shielding, and once the shield is done, Jaws, it drops a pool, a splashdown on the floor to speed you up, to get you either in or out of trouble, and get the team to, you know, your position as well. It's always been the issue of Feather is that sometimes you just get a little too far ahead of your team, but Lorelei with Splashdown helps with that as well. Right now, Raging Donuts pushing in with the Kraken. It's going to be difficult for them to secure this choke point turret because of their melee, but they're looking for a fight nonetheless.
Those Winter Spires starting to rack up as well. That Shadowglass is doing a whole lot of work, but so is that Kraken. And Valkyrie only slows Mercilli's, but he does get rooted up regardless. It's the Trespass, but it does get blocked. Raging Donuts marching through the base at this point. They do finally execute on the turrets. All of them about half HP at the moment, Dowsy, but a good splashdown here will land them a kill, you can imagine. Although Aristocratic is fairly low on energy, hasn't even got enough for a water wall right now. Just poking away, they're happy with that. And they're actually just going to disengage from it. Or in fact, Aristocratic gets pulled back in with the Torment, but he's too tanky at this point, and Qlash have to deal with that Kraken.
Yeah, with a 3-item Vox build and a Rezzer on your team, you don't take Kraken very quickly. They are just about able to finish it before the Kraken swipes one last time on that Vein Crystal turret, but that will just require a small breeze of wind to fall over in the next encounter. And right now, Raging Donuts are looking very good to find their first win in this best of 5. If you want to know a bit about the history of the challenge battles, how it played out, Qlash went up against Team Queso yesterday in the challenge battles and lost to them 2-0. It wasn't as dominant as the scoreline would suggest. The games were fairly even, but a 2-0 scoreline shows that Qlash are gasping at the moment to hold on to their Vainglory8 position. If they lose this series, they're out.
Oh, and they're going to go for another engagement. Netherform detonation actually used by Agony in that short engagement, and Qlash decide, you know what, it's not time for us to fight. We need a couple of more minutes rest, a couple of more minutes by the pool, but Aristocratic says, no, I'm going to summon a clown with a heap full of piranhas, and they're going to nom at your heels, and that's exactly what Qlash, exactly what's happening to them right now. Right, Raging Donuts is just taken inch by inch by inch, and that's turning into a mile.
Yeah, absolutely. The gold lead right now, 6,000 at this 20-minute mark, has meant that Donut has his full build, Raph practically has his full build, doesn't have a block, but he doesn't really need it. And Aristocratic is almost at a point where he has an Echo for, you guessed it, double ultimates. It's going to be very, very hard for Mercilles to get the kill onto this the Black Feather if there's 2 barriers coming through in a team fight. But realistically, we've seen that the team fight has won anyway. Oh dear, that is not a face check.
Wrong place, wrong time. Agony, that's what he's in right now. They do face check the brush and he ends up paying for it. And hey, guess what? That's another Kraken to Raging Donuts.
That is a very unfortunate way to lose a Kraken right there. And it is just probably nerves and team frustration setting in. When you're in a game like this, Jaws, you have to imagine you're doing everything you can to take down Donut on this Black Feather, and it just feels like you're headbutting yourself against a brick wall. Right now, looks like Raging Donuts are going to put Qlash out of their misery.
Yeah, they're going to find Disowned. There's the Trespass procced. However, it's only Raph that's stunned up. Disowned's going extremely low. Crucible and Fountain used for the heal, but Valkyrie perfectly timed from Raph finds Mercilles, and so does the Fish Food. They are Fish Food right now. Raging Donuts are going to be able to secure these 2 turrets with 40-second death time as Dowsy. This is going to be the end of game number 1. Raging Donuts will secure it, and that'll be 1-0 up over Qlash.
And the competition coming in from the European Challenger Series, from the VGL, is so fierce right now. Norm Pisani, the top team, did fall to Calamity Reborn on Thursday, but Team Queso and Raging Donuts, teams consisting of ex-European pros, they are eager to be back on the top of Europe in the competitive scene. And Raging Donuts with Raph and Donut, newcomer Aristocratic to the pro scene, taking game 1 over Qlash is a bold statement that they should have one of the Vainglory8 spots.
What an entrance as well into this best of 5, because you got to think about yesterday. You got to think about how Qlash performed against Team Queso, and it looked relatively even coming into it. And there were a few weaknesses that Team Queso just managed to pick apart on Qlash, and now this is Qlash's final ditch attempt. If they make it through today, if they win this series, they get another chance to make it through this Ring of Gauntlet, to make it into the VG8. But if they lose here, they'll go straight down in 2 challenges.
Yeah, they certainly do, Jaws. I think we've got a desk of fellas ready to break this one down. So, Munchables, let's hear.
Thank you very much, guys. What a game 1 coming out from the Raging Donuts. We were talking about the new update. We were talking about how Blackfeather and Rhyme have been changed, and maybe they would be a little bit weaker. I don't think that's going to be the case here.
Yeah, I mean, that looked pretty convincing for the Blackfeather and the Rhyme, even though both were hit with nerfs pretty heavily in Update 2.10. Obviously, the Raging Donuts just didn't get that memo or something, because they took those 2 heroes and played exceptionally well with it. And I said they would still be very strong picks, just not really priority picks. But maybe that's going to be something that the side of Qlash is going to have to start looking towards in the ban, is making sure that they don't get that duo.
Absolutely. And then with Lorelei on top of that, things looked pretty fantastic. But let's take a look at some of the replays of that game, starting off with Qlash, as they managed to start the game strong. This was kind of one of the only fights that they really significantly won.
Yeah, and it was very early in the game. You can see right off the bat, they were able to find a little bit of pressure. They got the early treant, and when the side of Raging Donuts tried to go aggressive, Qlash was able to answer very quickly. But this was before the first items were fully completed for every member of Raging Donuts, and that was really the key to that fight. Was, the Rhyme was still sitting on just the heavy prism, didn't have the Shatter Glass completed yet to add a lot of damage to his abilities.
Yeah, absolutely. But then once they started to get those items in, once they started to manage to find those power spikes, we saw them start to take control of the game. Raging Donuts got the next couple of replays as they got a couple of double kills kind of back to back with one another and managed to start to snowball things. And after the mid game, after that first clip, basically, Qlash really struggled to win any of the fights.
Yeah, it felt like it was all Raging Donuts from that moment. And, again, it was all about getting those items online, getting themselves to this point where they could win fights, and recognizing how the side of Qlash was trying to win. Once the breaking point came out for Mercillies, they focused him down almost every single fight and said, you know what, you want long drawn out fights, we're just going to take you out instantaneously and make it so that you can't get these long drawn out fights. You can't necessarily build up your stacks. And the opportunities that were found by Raging Donuts was actually very impressive. It was anytime they caught one member out of position, they were able to just burst them out so heavily. And again, here, 2-on-3 situation, they recognize that they have the numbers advantage and immediately go in for the kills.
Absolutely. Fantastic knowledge that they could capitalize in those situations and they could make sure that they were using those item spikes to their advantage. Now, the next replay that we have was later on in the game when they managed to grab themselves an ace. And this was really later on when they already had a Kraken in their pocket.
Yeah, this game already felt like it was a bit out of reach for Qlash unless they made some sort of dramatic, heroic play, but it just never really came. The ability of a Lorelei to lock down the enemy team, even though you only have the one stun, the massive slow that comes out from Splashdown to be able to provide the slow to the enemy team and the movement speed increase for you, especially when you have a hero like a Rhyme. This is why I think this composition works so well. It's just the way that it works together is just so strong. A Rhyme on his own isn't as strong as it used to be, but when you pair him with someone that can give that movement speed increase so frequently, it suddenly becomes that much easier for the Rhyme to stick to his target and have the same level of impact as he used to have in 2.9.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have to see how we can see to continue. That was a great sentence, Joe. We'll have to see if that continues to develop as we see Lorelei coming on into more of these drafts. I'm excited to see whether they are going to continue to run this one. Raging Donuts now going to be jumping onto the A side of the draft. Are we expecting to see the same prioritization? Like, are we still going to see things like a Black Feather first pick?
We very well could. I mean, they were clearly more than willing to grab it on the B side. They know that they're very likely to be going into a Vox, and that's another reason why they're so willing to go for that as a first pick, is because if you know what your opponent's lane matchup is going to be, even before they pick it, it just gives you such a big advantage because you can then freely pick your own carry with the assumption that it's going to be a Vox in the lane against you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious to see how they are going to develop a composition as well, because it feels like after a game one like that, when it's quite as one-sided, Qlash are going to be much more keen to ban away things like the Rhyme, things like the Black Feather, and maybe even ban away the Lorelei, because Lorelei was a huge linchpin of that composition, and it's actually going to be Raging Donuts banning that one away themselves.
Yeah, so it just goes to show that Raging Donuts, they're not willing to first pick the Lorelei, but they don't want to risk Qlash getting their hands on her either. So obviously a lot of priority being put onto that hero for the Donuts, but we'll see if they go with this Black Feather again, because it is going to be the Lyra getting taken off the board by Qlash.
Yeah, Lyra removed from the situation. That's going to be the second time now today that we see Lyra as the second ban coming on through. And now Raging Donuts. We'll see if they are going to continue to prioritize that Black Feather, or whether Rhyme is a more important pick to them, or whether they start to lean on some other picks. Obviously, we've been talking about one single composition that they ran. That's not necessarily going to be the composition that they want every single game.
100% of their games that we've seen have been with the Black Feather first pick, and they're going to continue to go for that Black Feather. Again, I think it's part of it is because they still feel the Black Feather is very strong, but another part of it is just because of the fact that they are very confident in the fact that it will be a Vox in the lane against them, and it's challenging the Qlash. It's saying, Mercillies, we dare you to pick something that can deal with the Black Feather more efficiently than a Vox. Like, just challenging him to play something else, but it is going to be the Rona pickup, and that is something that can go toe-to-toe with the Black Feather in the lane.
Absolutely, and that was what was banned by Raging Donuts after the Black Feather pick in the last draft. So Qlash going to be happy with that lock-in, but obviously you can send Black Feather into the jungle as well. You can see that CP, so that's an option for the Raging Donuts. But Grace going to be taken off the board here by Qlash. So both Water Wall and Divine Intervention, those huge teamfight ultimates that would save something like a Black Feather, are going to be removed.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what they decide to pick up as the counter for this Rona, because she was very strong on the tail end of Update 2.9 and did not really receive any changes in 2.10, so still very much a powerhouse in this Rona pick. And obviously the Raging Donuts, they're going to need to do something to be able to deal with that. You know, you're going to need that range because you're not going to be able to duel her if you draft a melee composition.
Yeah, we'll see where Qlash are going to go with this one as well. Obviously, Lance still available. We've mentioned Lance incredibly strong right now, and also a very safe captain to pick up. But things like the Rhyme as well could be an option. They are actually going to go with Arden, though. That Gauntlet just works so well alongside Arona, try and lock people in so she can just spin around with that red mist.
Yeah, and again, the fact that the Rona is there is going to should completely change the way that Raging Donuts approach the rest of this draft, because if you go for a melee, if you go for something like the Lance, even though, yes, you can use a lot of stuns onto the Rona to try and cancel out the red mist, that's a very short cooldown that it's on. So they are going to try and set those plays up, but now they need something that can capitalize on it. They need some way to burst this Rona down if she, or when she does get stunned. The Vox isn't really going to provide the burst, but it will be able to stay at range. So I feel like they're going to be focusing on the burst with the Crystal Black Feather, and then obviously the Weapon Vox, just to try and kite around, build up those stacks while the Rona is as well. But we've seen this matchup numerous times in the Vainglory 8 on Update 2.9, and Rona won that matchup more often than not.
See if that is going to be the case coming on into this game. Obviously, Raging Donuts looked fantastic in Game 1 of this series, and potentially we'll see how Elo Hawk is going to be able to match up against Vasili's Rona. This is obviously assuming that the Rona does go into the lane. It is possible that it goes into the jungle, but something we see a lot less often. 12 seconds on the clock, though. Qlash have to round this one out.
Yeah, they're going to be looking to get a jungler here, and it is going to be the Samuel. So just kind of keeping at range there as well to just sort of allow this Rona to be the front line. They want the focus to be on the Rona pick, while the Samuel is able to output damage from the backlines and just kind of go untouched for the majority of it. Because if you focus on the Samuel, all of a sudden Rona is in your face and spinning constantly and building up those stacks, and it becomes very difficult to deal with. So I actually very much like the draft that Qlash have come out here with, but it's just going to be a question of, will it be enough? Will Mercedes be able to perform on this pick that is not a Vox Orchestral?
It's going to be one of the big questions. And honestly, when you look at the draft that's come out from them, I really like the fact that they have that Samuel. You expect something like a Dragon's Eye to be built up because of how tanky the rest of the team is. You've got a Rona, huge amount of sustain, and then Arden, naturally incredibly tanky on this update and on the last update as well. So you expect that they should be able to survive long enough for this Samuel to just chunk out damage time and time again, and hopefully that would be enough for them to win teamfights. How we expect... Oh, in fact, it's time to get on into this one. Hashtag Vainglory8. Let us know who you are supporting on this one. Is this going to turn into a 2-0, or are we going to have a longer series on our hands? It's time to find out as we pass it over to Jaws and Dowsy.
Thank you very much, guys. Once again, two-man desk rocking it, and the two-man caster crew coming in strong. My name's Jaws, joined by Dowsy, like they said, and we're into game number 2, Raging Donuts versus Qlash. Raging Donuts over on the blue, Qlash over on the red. Now, Qlash have kind of slipped up a little bit mid-game, and Raging Donuts really showed how much fire they have in their bellies.
Certainly did, but in this game, the composition coming out of Qlash far more easily executed comparatively to the previous game. Rona is quite possibly the strongest laner on this update, Jaws, and I expect as we kind of progress through the challenge battles today and tomorrow, and then head onto Worlds on this 2.10 update in December, we're going to be seeing a lot of Rona being picked up just due to the fact that she has almost no bad matchups in the lane, and she synergizes so well with Breaking Point, which, despite the nerf, still outputs the same amount of damage, and Rona stacks it one of the quickest. So Masilis on this Rona going to have a lot easier of a time kind of executing his duties onto the enemy team.
Well, Qlash started off strong this time around, securing that Elder Tree, and in fact, Agni's going to be able to pick that one up with no real interference coming out from Raging Donuts. But one matchup we were actually talking about previous to being brought on air, Dowsy, was the fact that Donut coming into the lane against Masilis, because Masilis has been touted as not like a two-trick, but his champion pool is very constricted to things like Fox and the Kestrel. But seeing him on this Rona is a pleasant surprise, in all honesty.
Yeah, no, I think so as well. And, you know, Rona is very good into Vox just to the fact that she can kind of stick to the Vox with her multiple gap closers. Donut going to have to be positioning very well to be able to escape the wrath of this Rona. This is kind of where the Black Feather and the Lance comes in, as we kind of see them catch out Samuel in the jungle.
Yeah, Agony's in a little bit of trouble. Oh, the Impale lands as well. Does pop the flask and the boost to get a bit of distance. Disown's going to be here also, but Raph still chasing him, in fact. Tries to find the execute, but it wasn't quite enough damage. Luckily, Disown did try and go for the rotate there, but Aristocratic already being really aggressive on this lance.
And Samuel's strong. And I think Aristocratic may have just killed himself. We'll have to find out.
Yeah, he absolutely did. Masilis is going to rotate towards the layer, towards the bottom side of the map, and manages to pick up the kill for himself. First blood to Qlash.
I don't know what Aristocratic was thinking there. He knew that Disowned was there. He knew that an Arden's Vanguard shielding is pretty hard to chunk through as a Lance. Yet he went for the Impale, and good rotation from Donut just to get that assist. In fact, some Masilis rotating down to get the kill, I should say, and that's going to put this Rona even more in an advantageous position over Donut on the box. Now, Lance Blackfeather can be very effective into Rona. The slow that comes out of the on point with the Crisp Power Blackfeather, if you're able to poke the Rona down, there's no real sustain to heal her back up unless she's auto-attacking. So there is that kind of ability to play at range and really try and dictate the fight. But when you think about poke, you think about Samuel. He is one of the premier poking heroes. And so this is where the Black Feather kind of loses its power, is the fact that Agony is able to counter it all with his Drifting Dark, with his Malice and Verdicts. And so Qlash's composition really has the best of both worlds. Their all-in is great, and their range game is great as well. Raging Donuts to find team fights is going to be a very difficult task for them. And it's going to kind of come down to CC locking and ability to blow up the Samuel, I feel. If they can focus down Agony off the team fight, then they have a chance to take it. But they're really going to be relying on their ability to kite backwards, and it's going to be hard, especially when the Arden gets his double gauntlet ongoing as well.
There's the Drifting Dark. Aristocratic going really low again. Agony's going to chase him up for the kill. Aristocratic falls once more. Agony picking up his another kill here for Qlash, adding another one to the total. Both carries now having a kill apiece.
Been a long time since we've seen Agony play his Samuel on the big stage, but he is one of the best in Europe. Tyraz, certainly the king of Samuel, self-proclaimed, and I think many people would agree, Jaws, that Tyraz is one of the best in the world when it comes to the hero. But Agony has always lived in his shadow here in Europe this year, and you know, he's very good at this hero. It's something that he's always been very proficient at. When he was playing for Rising Lotus before the Qlash roster got acquired, he could always be relied upon with his Samuel pick. So picking it up on 2.10, where the energy changes to pretty much every energy item, plus a lot of heroes getting you know, less energy cost on their abilities, we've got this CP meta creeping back on in to the Halcyon fold, and Samuel's very good at the moment. So it's really nice to for Agony and other people who kind of have these great hero pools that rely on CP heroes such as Sky, such as Celeste and stuff like that, because their ability to spam abilities has been increased, and it just synergizes so well with Dragon's Eye.
Well, Raph moving up towards the lane now. Is that level 6 mark here, Dowsy? So he's going to be able to engage rather vigorously if Aristocratic does land a bit of CC, but this is where Qlash's composition, like you mentioned, is going to come, and the strengths are going to show. Ability to actually siege turrets and disengage, as well as actually go for a full-on turret dive, is going to be quite astounding as soon as Disowned actually hits that level 6 mark. With actually Masilis hitting level 6 also now, with that red mist fully online, means that Donut's going to have to play even more defensively. Aristocratic is going to have to be on his toes also to land Githian walls like that to make sure Agony knows his place. Vanguard there to speed him up out of danger, however, and just carries on the relentless assault on that turret.
Yeah, they certainly do. Samuel just trying to chip away at it. Right now, they're body blocking the Drifting Darks as best as they can, because that is the major damage hitting the turret, is the Drifting Dark itself. Vasilis doesn't really want to put himself in the melee range just in case things are to go wrong. He's going to be building towards his breaking point as quickly as possible, Vasilis. That's when the Rona becomes super scary, because the all-in potential is going to be so huge for the side of Qlash, and it's very likely that the breaking point will be picked up just as Disowned hits level 6 as well. The gauntlets will come out. That's such a huge team-wide power spike for Qlash. The gauntlet plus the ability to, you know, stack up a breaking point using red mist whilst everyone is stacked up and trying their best to escape a gauntlet is going to be huge for Qlash, and it's only Donut who has a reflex block right now. So Raph, Aristocratic, if they're stuck in the gauntlet walls, they're only playing into Vasili's win condition here, and Qlash could look to really run away with the game in just a couple of minutes, or seconds even. It's pretty much here.
Well, you were right. Not minutes, seconds. There it is. The level 6 is online. Disowned. Oh, sorry. Vasili's even picking up that breaking point just in a couple of seconds. All rotate his way towards the lane. Here we go. This will be Qlash maybe pulling the trigger here. They have the ability to just lock Donut in place. Has got reflex block, mind you. Aristocratic does not, and neither does Raph, but it does have that black feather ultimate to get out of the way. That Rose offensive will have to be used at the critical time, however, and will leave Donut high and dry, you can imagine. This now has the ability to just scare Raging Donuts, walk up to them, will I gauntlet, will I not, will I gauntlet? It just gives Vasilis and Agony a whole lot of time to play with in this lane.
Certainly does. We'll have to see exactly how they want to play this. Realistically, their want is just to land empowered Drifting Darks onto the turret here. Without a minion wave, they can't really chunk through that shield, so they have to make sure that they're using that in the right way. But if they can keep the health bars nice and low, wow.
Oh, beautiful Githian wall by Aristocratic. The Donut's going to fall extremely low, and Pale does land, but it ends up missing. Raph getting onto the back line using that Rose offensive, and the wait for it actually gets pushed away from Aristocratic, pushes Vasilis out of it. There's the Oblivion, again goes a little bit wide, but it's just Qlash now pushing and forcing Raging Donuts out of the lane, and they've done just that. Donut having to back, the same with Aristocratic, leaves Raph in a 1v3 situation.
And extremely impressive coming out of Aristocratic to land that Githian wall and knock the Arden into it.
Oh, those Drifting Darks. You're
dear.
saying how Agony is so good on the Samuel. This is why Raph and Aristocratic overstay. They get punished. Agony picks himself up a double kill.
Yeah, very, very good stuff, and it's kind of the hard luck situation that Raging Donuts find themselves in. Agony's going to go for Donut here, and Donut has not found himself in a good spot.
Yeah, wrong place, wrong time, although Agony going fairly low. There's another empowered Drifting Dark, and that just sends him to the grave. Those Malice and Verdicts are really starting to rack up now, especially when you've got a Dragon's Eye almost fully stacked, it felt like. There goes the turret, and that'll be first turret and blood to Qlash.
Yeah, 3,000 gold in the lead. Do you like to see that Donut has picked up that Sorrow Blade second, though? You saw the damage that was going down onto Agony. It's a huge mid-game power spike for the box, and even in a 1 versus 3, almost able to pick up a return kill, which would have been fine for the side of Raging Donuts, because they were pretty much guaranteed to lose their turret regardless of what Mercili's Donut was able to do there. It's why the Sorrow Blade has been creeping back into meta for Vox. It's a really good second item in a 3-item offensive build for Vox. Finish it off with a breaking point or even a bone saw if you figure that your enemy is going to have a lot of armor, and so that might be something we see Donut do in this game. But right now, it's hard luck for Raging Donuts. They really can't go for these sustained fights. They need to find picks. It's very difficult to do so.
Well, the picks are going to come out for one team. It's going to be Qlash. Donut has managed to use that reflex bolt to get out that gauntlet for the time being, but Aristocratic was stuck in there with all that damage of Vasilis. He is dashing forward. It's a very scary bunny when she's got a lot of breaking point stacks. In fact, they're going to have to back off now as Raging Donuts are just going to press the attack. However, Raph really can't find an engagement, especially when he has to deal with the brunt force of Agony, who's sitting at 2 items as well. Drifting Dark comes out as empowered Malice and Verdict splits up the team, and Aristocratic is going to be in the front line. Does end up going down. 5 kills for Agony on the board, and Donut and Raph are going to have to clean up this, but it's going to be hard against Disowned and Vasilis, just tag teaming Donut. However, they do manage to find the kill onto Agony, and Vasilis do end up falling here. Actually, I'm going to eat my own words, Dowsy, as Qlash lose 2 for 1.
Yeah, impressive turnaround coming out of Raging Donuts. They were able to kite back and they were able to consistently do damage whilst doing so. Raph's ability to shut those on points out, slow down the Rona and the Samuel, allows for Donut to kite back with his Sonic Zoom, and if he's consistently landing some auto attack damage, resonance bounce damage whilst doing so, then he is able to do a lot of damage with this Poison Shift. Sora Blade does need to get that third offensive item online as quickly as possible, but he's also needing to prioritize his Aegis as well. The Heavy still does get picked up, meaning he will go Breaking Point as his third item. Masilli's on a Rona, realistically, might even go towards a Shiver Steel as his third item, just to slow down this box and really allow for Agony to consistently land auto attack and Malice and Verdict damage. Really need to be auto-attacking in between your abilities on Samuel with the Dragon's Eye. You can see he's got it up to 7 stacks, but if he stops, and he's going to stop now, then it's going to just drop all the way down to 0 in just 2 seconds, basically. And so this is where Agony's life is a little bit hard, because he has to stay in the fight consistently. He can't afford to back away. If he takes too much poke damage from Raph or Donut, then he will be forced to back away, and that's when that Dragon's Eye stacks get lost. So keep your eyes on the HUD indicator there just above Agony's name, and check the stacks going up and down, because it really does influence the team fight for the side of Qlash. If Agony does get forced back by some good on points and auto attacks from Donut and Raph, then the ability for Raging Donuts to turn the team fight around comes significantly higher.
I said it was going to be the Donut and Masilli show. It's proving right now it's just the Agony show at this moment in time. Raph not having the biggest impact, but like you mentioned, the sustained fights from Raging Donuts are going to be where they want to do and where they want to actually play these fights. Donut and Raph, their ability to poke down Agony and poke down Masilli's before they go in for an engagement is where they're going to be able to win. But right now, with Qlash's ability to just farm these waves and push in time and time again and force the fights with the gauntlet, that's going to be where Raging Donuts have to play around. And with that Echo coming online fairly soon from Disowned, you can imagine it's going to make their lives a heck of a lot harder. We are 13 minutes in, and there's only 2,000 gold separating the teams, so they're not in the biggest deficit just yet, but losing that turret was a massive, massive loss for them, and they are just forced back time and time again as Masilli's is going to rotate towards the lane.
Aristocratic has that Void Battery in his inventory, really wants to get that Echo online. Echo's changes in 2.10 make it even more of an effective item on low CD abilities like Giphian War, which is what Lance loves to use it for. Right now, the poke damage coming out of Agony forces back Raging Donuts. Aristocratic doing his best to tank up as much of it so that his carry and jungler can stay healthy enough to lay down the damage, but at certain points too much damage will go through, and the Lifespring changes that came through a couple of updates ago realistically mean Aristocratic can't afford to tank up as much damage as previously captains were able to do. Before Lifespring, the passive on Fountain allowed you to tank up a lot of damage, then just stay out of the fight for a minute and you'll back up to full health. It ticks through very much slowly now, and so Aristocratic definitely has to be careful about how much damage he does with Sword.
That engagement from Masilli's and Disowned. Didn't really expect to meet Donut and Raph there at one time. Now turret is being chunked down though, Dowsy, and Disowned actually at half HP. This is exactly what we were talking about, but Aristocratic does miss the Impale, pays for it with a little bit of HP getting chunked out from Agony, but right now Raging Donuts, their ability to actually get on this turret is paramount. They do manage to take it down, but this could be the engagement they were looking for. That Gauntlet was completely misplaced, and Aristocratic misplaced and disrupted Disowned, pushed him away with the Giphian Wall. Oblivion goes a little bit wide, but that wave through will silence 3 members. Raph still trying to kite back, however, a 2v3 turns into a 2v2. Agony picks up a double kill. Donut now left all alone, high and dry, gets chewed up by the Red Mist, and Qlash take the ace.
And what a terrible time to get aced, because the Kraken has just spawned. They're going to find themselves a turret with this aced up minion wave, and the Kraken will be theirs as well, which means a single turret already secured in the push, and then they will push onto the choke point turret to find 2 to make this Kraken 100% worthwhile. It was great presence of mind from Raging Donuts to recognize the fact that the engage potential from Qlash had already been used and they could get the turret, but they needed to be one as a unit, either fight straight upwards or disengage, and you saw Donut run to the heels whilst Aristocratic attempted to fight. He did manage to displace the Gauntlet, was great, but then he killed himself basically by being in the middle of the team fight whilst his team was disengaging. So little moments like that can really ruin it. Another thing, tiny little micro interaction that actually allowed for Raging Donuts to get the turret was the fact that Massili's and Disown both used their Atlases at the same time. They cannot afford to do that against the Vox. They need to stagger them, and so it's something that if they do that and Donut is able to block or avoid the Atlas, then this gives Raging Donuts a chance to win the team fight. So another thing that is small but super effective and super apparent as these team fights go on. Atlas usage has to be good from the side of Qlash.
There's the Gauntlet, the Oblivion comes through as well. Wrath dodging out of both of those things with the Rose offensive. Turret does get destroyed and it does open up the base here, Dowsy. Another Gauntlet comes down. They do manage to stun Donut this time. He's going to go straight underneath that turret, but they've isolated Aristocratic. Disown falling really low also. That turret actually focusing on Agony. A nice two-man impale, but they haven't got the damage to follow up. They're just trying to kill the Kraken. Aristocratic is going to go down. Mercedes finds the final blow on him, and Donut and Wrath are just left to deal with the Kraken that is knocking on their crystal doors. One turret will fall. Agony's still pushing on. He is getting focused by that turret. Almost sends Wrath to the bin, but actually does end up getting out alive, and in fact has to pop the boost as Donut does the same. Does manage to dash forward. Sonic zooms, can't quite find the finishing blow. Disowned ends up falling, but they still knock down 2 turrets in the process. Qlash will be happy with that one.
Oh, 1 for Agony, 2 for Agony. Oh, not going to find third. Does get shut down.
Close.
Very close coming through there. Agony almost made big plays on the Samuel, and once more it was, of course, the misplays, the lack of communication or synergy, whatever you want to name it, with Raging Donuts. Aristocratic went in, brilliant engage with the lance, but his teammates were set on taking down that Kraken, and so they left him for dust and allowed for Qlash to potentially almost finish the game. They weren't quite able to do so, and it did mean in the end that they have successfully pushed into the base of Raging Donuts. A 3-turret push on a Kraken is nothing to shake your head at. Qlash are looking on fire, and it's this Rona-Samuel combination, just so much power from the jungle and the lane. If you want an all-in fight, Rona loves it. So does Samuel. If you want to kite and poke, Samuel can do that all by himself, and it's making it very difficult for the side of Raging Donuts. They really need to pucker up here and find some synergy, because if Aristocratic keeps dying very early on to the team fights, there's no way for them to win.
I say this every time I see it, Rona Dowsy. I love seeing the breaking point stacks just tick up over and over again, like you're filling your car up. She's just filling up with damage. And Qlash, when they get in these fights, Massili's, that just dings up 20 instantly. And then it's him on Wrath, 1v1. Who's going to survive? The poking Black Feather or the massive barbarian woman that's just chewing your face up with a red mist? It's going to be Massili's most of the time. And we did speak about it at the start of the game. Is his champion pool going to affect this game? Apparently not. The Gauntlet does come out from Disown. They do lock one in place, but a low hook's already getting dove on by Massili's. Another Gauntlet comes out, separating them even further. Donut cannot quite find his way into the fight, and Aristocratic takes the brunt of the damage. Fountain to keep himself alive for the time being. Still Wrath and Donut just pummeling the back line. Agony going very low. That's a Fountain from themselves. Qlash, they still need to fight and survive. Well, keep Agony alive, but Wrath is doing his best and hardest to take him down. He manages to kill him in the back line. Is just trying to dissuade him, but Massili's is just chomping on Donut, and Donut pays the price, pays the piper, and does manage to take out Massili's. The kiting was just too much for him, and Raging Donuts find an ace.
Impressive from Raging Donuts to be able to find the ace. It looked so hopeless when Aristocratic went down so early on into the team fight, but the split coming out of Qlash was not good for them. Turrets are going to fall now, Jaws, and Raging Donuts are going to push as hard as they can. It's going to be a 2-turret push, equalizing the gold here, making these teams dead even in this game. The Kraken has spawned as well, so the next team fight could just decide the game, although if it's an ace for Qlash, then you expect them to just chin and finish. Same could be said realistically for Raging Donuts, and there's that kite potential that both the Black Feather and Vox are able to do, except this time we saw it happening on 2 frontiers. They were kiting separately against 2 individual heroes, and they were able to just do the work. Wow, Raging Donuts able to get a lifeline in this game. They need to use it wisely here, Jaws. If Qlash are going to split like that, then I think Raging Donuts might just have it in them to bring this game back and make it a 2-0.
Yeah, make it a match point as well. Raging Donuts right now, they're playing their composition extremely well, and Qlash is jack of all trades. Like you said early on, they've got poke potential, they've got all-in dive. As soon as they get split up, it's easy for Raph. It's easy for Donut to actually just focus down one target. They've got so much mobility and so much damage at this point of the game as well, where gold doesn't really mean all too much. There might be a couple of tier 2 items here and there, but we're at 44 to 44k.
Raph doesn't have his third tier 3 offensive item, so there is a lapse of damage still for Raging Donuts. This Black Feathers isn't quite poking as hard as he can do, but in a 1v1 situation, due to the Heartthrob stacks, he kind of makes up for it, especially once the target is low on health, because Vein of Heart is still going to do missing health execute damage. Teamfight brewing, looks like they're going to go in.
Well, Masilius opens up with a red mist. There you can see the tickers ticking up on that breaking point, but it's going to get interrupted with a Giphy Maul. Double Gauntlet in place. Aristocratic completely trapped. Donut on the other side of everything on the other side of the map at this point. The Gauntlet's finally come down, and that'll be Disowned, just disengaging Masilius, who fell really low. Aristocratic goes for the Impale, but Masilius is going to be on the front line, just chewing away at Raph, trying to find the kill. Oblivion didn't quite land, and now they're going to focus Agony, who again gets a Vanguard to stay alive. Aristocratic refusing to fall, and now it's Disowned's time to go down. Masilius is going extremely low as well, but still surviving against Raph. The execute damage was enough to kill him. The on point was not, and now it's Agony in a 1v3, but health bars are ticking for Raging Donuts. Agony has got the energy, but the boots are going to get popped from Donut. Those Malice and Verdicts, they're just too strong. Donut dashes forwards, gets stung, and that'll be Agony with a double kill.
Wow, almost a team fight win for Raging Donuts, and the game would have been theirs. But Agony, able to survive in the crucial moment and find that double, has allowed for Qlash to survive once more. They didn't finish the game when they had the opportunity to. They're making too many mistakes in this late game, and they've opened the door for Raging Donuts to come back in. Both Donut and Raph seemingly super confident to fight here, and it's becoming an issue, this poke and kiting ability to just get around the Rona and make her useless, and perhaps it is that hero pool from Masilius being weaker than his Vainglory8 companions, being a bit of an issue here. Yes, Rona is super strong, but if you aren't super practiced on it, then you might not be as effective as you need to be. Aristocratic is wondering what he can do with Agony here. Raph coming around the side, it's just going to secure that tree, and the Kraken is being started up, Jaws, and look at where Donut is. He's super far away. Rona can easily solo this out. Raging Donuts need to get vision on the Kraken, but they're not going to. They don't suspect a thing. They need to start a fight. Surely they figured it out, but no, they haven't. This Kraken might just go over to Qlash, and then the team fight break out.
He hasn't been rumbled yet, but he might just be now.
They've spotted it, surely.
Down. They have to have spotted it. There's the drifting dart, but the Gauntlets are just going to lock them in place. The Kraken's going to go over to Qlash, and now we'll wait for it comes out from Donut. He wants to be able to start this fight. Vasili's uses that instant play to get to the back line, or get to the front line of his own team, I should say. And now is getting him all into the wall. A Vanguard keeps him alive. Aristocratic with the Echo, getting him all. Does manage to lock down Agony. They trade 1-for-1, but now it's Raph in the front line. He just gets jumped on. Masili's with 20 breaking points. Sack just kills it. And now Aristocratic is going to have to run and survive for as long as he can, but that Kraken is marching on his base.
And this is just so unfortunate for Raging Donuts. Their engagement onto the team fight was so good, Jaws, knowing that they had to team fight before that Kraken went down so that they could stop the healing buff that comes from the Kraken. Once you're in combat, you don't get it, and they already had done so much to the health bars of Agony and Disown. They needed to keep in combat to stop it, but they walked straight into Rona's favorite place to spin to win, the jungle. Such tight corridors normally favor the lands, and you saw Aristocratic have so much impact with his CC locking, but it also allows for Masilius to basically stack up on 3 members and tear through them, and that is not a place you want to fight a Rona. GG to Qlash, managing to bring it through in the end, but it was close affair. They almost allowed Raging Donuts back into the game. Not something you want to be doing in an elimination match.
One apiece, Raging Donuts. They had such a good and clean mid-game. Qlash took it to them early, but then they managed to stabilize, but it was just down to the crucial team fights where Aristocratic just went way too low. Raph same happened to him, and it really was the Agony show at the end of it all. 11-4 on the Samuel. Got an early lead, managed to snowball it. And that was the big kind of story, and I did kind of put it on Donut, and I'm kind of sad that Masili's had a little less impact, but it was the Agony show. Every single time I say this, Dowsy, it just happens over and over again. I want to watch this player, and then another player pops off, but Agony really held his own in that fight. What an incredible game from Qlash. We'll see what they do want to do in game number 3, but we're going to throw it over to the analyst desk where they can break down the Qlash win.
There we have it. It turns out if Agony gets onto his Samuel, he is going to have a whale of a time across the course of the game. That's exactly what we just saw before our very eyes. Agony managing to do some serious work in those fights.
Yeah, it was kind of a tale of two halves for this game. For the first half of the game, it was Agony absolutely controlling everything with this Samuel, and then in the later stages of the game, even though the KDA doesn't look as strong as what Agony brought to the table, Mercilli's with this Rona was able to close things out for the side of Qlash and be really able to put the nail in the coffin. It just, again, this Rona pick is very, very strong. I expect to see a lot of Rona in this update because she was strong in 2.9 and she didn't really get changed into 2.10.
Absolutely. She's looking incredible if we base it off of that game that we've just seen. Let's take a look at some of the highlights of that game, starting with the first blood, and then that led into another early double kill coming through for Qlash.
Yeah, this was Qlash, again, able to use the fact that they have a stronger jungle matchup. They knew that the Blackfeather wasn't going to be able to clear as quickly as a Samuel can. Doesn't have as much team fighting potential in the early games, and they just completely abused this fact. They shut the Blackfeather down very heavily right from the get-go.
Yeah, they certainly did. And just a fantastic job of abusing that advantage that they managed to have and managing to really turn that into something more significant. And across the course of the game, we saw Qlash getting stronger and stronger, but it wasn't all about Qlash either. Raging Donuts did have some fights during the mid-game where they were able to actually win out some fights as well.
Yeah, and this was again, showing that they're not willing to just give up and just give a game over just because they fall behind. They were able to find opportunities for themselves. Unfortunately, it was usually when the members of Qlash were pushing something else on the map. Like right here, they're pushing in with the Kraken, and then they're able to find a good fight to turn things in their favor a little bit. Wasting the gauntlet in a sense, or the gauntlet got thrown and they just were able to kite around it and not really allow the members of Qlash to engage the fight when they wanted to. They disengaged, prevented the Rona from being able to stack up and really effectively, and were able to just focus on the objective for the vast majority of this clip. You're seeing they're just on the Kraken. They're making sure they take down the Kraken before it's able to take too much of their base out.
Absolutely, and this was the moment where Raging Donuts managed to kind of hold onto the situation off the back of just being able to defend here and grabbing a double kill there. They actually managed to start to find their own advantages.
Yeah, and then this one you can see they're able to kite out again pretty effectively, preventing the Rona from being able to have that massive impact, but at the same time, they're kind of leaving Aristocratic out to dry. He wasn't able to have a whole lot of impact in this game after the fights started. Like, they would start up, he'd get a couple of good impales, a nice Scythian wall or so, but then wasn't really able to follow up. And whenever they split the fight, this was the key for the side of Raging Donuts, was splitting the two carries away from each other, because Vox was able to 1v1 the Rona in these duels because he was able to just prevent her from being able to stack up, keeping off of the red mists and things like that. And then Blackfeather was able to duel out the Samuel, because Samuel is, even when he's all in on you, it's still very poke focused. And if you're able to just get those on points and dodge out any of the Malice and Verdicts, you can out-trade with a Samuel.
Absolutely. This was a beautiful play coming out from Qlash. Just distraction coming out from Agony and Disowned. And they still didn't know about this one. No one from Raging Donuts realized that the Kraken was being taken. Now they finally get vision, but it's as the Kraken is taken. And that is a huge swing for Qlash.
Yeah, and it's also just a great job by the rest of Qlash to kite them over at the perfect time. Once the Kraken is taken, all of a sudden now they can turn and look for the team fight. And again, look at the Rona, how healthy she is. She started off this fight on a sliver of health, but it was just so difficult for the members of Raging Donuts to actually take down. And once they were able to turn that around and get the 2 kills on the carries, this one was over. There was, even if somehow Aristocratic gets out of this, there's no way that he's able to stop this Kraken push.
Absolutely. And one of the key things in that fight as well was everyone was focused on Agony. They were trying to take down that Samuel, but he survived for so long. The shields coming out from Disowned and just the sustain that Samuel has in general anyway, along with a Fountain, they couldn't finish him quick enough. And during all of that time, as you were mentioning, Rona's just stacking on up. By the time you get to that late stage of the fight, there's no way you could take on a 20-stack Rona. But that was how the game ended, and that means we are 1 apiece in this series now. We're going to a third game in this best of 5, and we'll see who can take an advantage. But definitely feels like drafts are already starting to shape up. We're starting to see some themes in this series. What are we expecting to see coming into Game 3, though?
I'm curious to see what's going to happen with this Black Feather pick, because if the side of Qlash leaves it open, then we get the situation where the Black Feather pick comes through for Raging Donuts, and they're able to ban away the Rona, and that would be disastrous for the side of Qlash. So I almost think maybe they do just go ahead and ban away the Black Feather, but then you have to worry about the Lorelei. But they are going to take the Black Feather off the board. Raging Donuts, they don't want to deal with the Churnwalker. So it will be Lyra, and then Fortress, the answer. Yeah. Fortress, if we go way back a couple of seasons, was typically picked up into the Lyra and served as sort of a bit of a counter to her because of the movement speed and the mortal wounds.
Even if you just go back to the start of this series, Fortress was the first ban from Qlash when they were on A side previously. Now Raging Donuts going to be able to get on first rotation. So very excited to see how that is going to perform as a pickup. The Respect ban coming through onto the Samuel, and now we have a Sky locked in here as well.
Yeah, and so because Fortress and Lyra were picked up, very unlikely to see something like the Lorelei or the Arden or the Lance come through. So both teams move away from the captain bans and go towards the junglers. I'm a little bit surprised that, obviously they don't want the Samuel to go over, but I'm a little bit surprised that they're just leaving the Vox open. But this could just be a situation where Raging Donuts say, you know what, even though it's his most played and his best hero, we're okay with Mercedes getting that Vox, and we feel like we can play around it.
We'll see. If they do go with that Vox, would not be even remotely surprised to see that locked on in. Obviously, we did see him starting to pick up Kestrel as well towards the end of the season, but Kestrel, not something that has looked all too strong on this update. Baron, though, is going to be locked on in. Obviously, Kestrel did get nerfed, as we mentioned before.
But we'll have to see where this Baron goes, or what path this Baron goes, I should say. It's likely to be in the lane, but we have seen an update 2.10. I've seen it a few times. The Crystal-powered Baron could be something that comes out. It had some changes so that the jump jets, it used to be that, the wind-up time was the same, or was the long time, but you had more range on the jump jets. That has now changed, so it's just the more crystal power you have, the faster the jump jets go, just like the weapon power path. And a lot of teams have decided that makes it viable enough to run this crystal power Baron. You have a lot more reliability. With the pedal coming through, it feels like it'll be a weapon Baron in the lane with a crystal pedal in the jungle.
Yeah, it certainly feels like that could be the case coming on through. I'm excited to see, even if it's just the weapon Baron, I'm still excited to see how that one is going to pan out, especially into the likes of a Fortress and a Sky. Mech versus Mech here. And now we have to see how Raging Donuts want to finish off this composition, whether that will be a weapon Sky going into the lane, or whether that will be CP Sky in the jungle.
Yeah, there is still the potential that they put the Fortress into the jungle and look to pick up a captain as their final selection, but it just feels to me like it will be a captain Fortress just on the surface level, but we'll have to wait and see what they decide to grab as their final pick. Before we know for sure, that's one of the strengths of the draft that the side of Raging Donuts has put together thus far, is that it has a lot of flexibility, but it is going to be an Ozo as the final pick, so hoping that the durability of this Ozo will be enough to survive the Baron.
Alright, so does this mean that the Sky is going to be going weapon power going into that lane and trying to take on Baron head-to-head, Mech versus Mech? Are we going to see Transformers here is what I'm asking.
We very much should see Transformers, the motorbike versus the helicopter, and obviously Sky, we've seen it into the Baron before where you can position yourself, it's all about diving Baron. That's how you shut him down, is by having that heavy dive potential, and with a Sky and an Ozo, both of them can very easily get into that back line and damage this Baron and chunk him down before he's able to get out to safety.
All right, so with the Captain Fortress then, are we expecting to see early aggression coming out from Raging Donuts? Do you expect to see them just trying to force the issue early on here?
Absolutely. I think both teams are going to be looking to be fairly aggressive. You have a Lyra that has that sustain, so you feel like you can win trades, especially with a pedal. Mm-hmm. And then on the other hand, you have Ozo alongside the Fortress. That's also very aggressive early game composition. So both sides very likely going to be butting heads early and often.
All right, we'll see how this one's going to pan out. It's time to get on into our third game of the series. Hashtag Vainglory8. Let us know who you are supporting. It's time to pass it back to Jaws and Dowsy to get into game number 3.
Guys, once again, game number 3, one apiece, and now we're back on the original size. Qlash over on the blue, Raging Donuts over on the red. This time we're seeing this Baron coming up against Raf's Ozo. I got destroyed by an Ozo the other day in Solo Queue Dowsy, and I'm honestly a bit scared because Raf is a very aggressive jungler, and twin to someone like Aristocratic on this fortress, you can imagine he's going to make Agony his life a living hell.
You know what I get destroyed by on a regular basis, Jaws?
Go for it.
Donut's weapon power Sky. He is a monster on this Sky. I don't believe that someone can be this good at Vainglory every time I go up against it. It's ridiculous. And so I'm really excited to see it face up against Massili's on this Baron, because Baron, a hero that just has so much damage in the late game, which means that Donut's Sky mechanics are going to have to be tip-top perfect if he wants to be able to series strike on top of the Baron to take him out. And that's where the Fortress comes on in. You can see they can dive very deep very easily.
Yeah, acrobating straight onto Massili's, just uses jump jets to get away, but Donut's actually going to follow him, taking a 4 barrage as well with him. Is actually forced to pop the flask there as well. Nice early aggressive play from Raging Donuts. They force Massili's already underneath his own turret, and in fact he's going to have to go back as well.
Jaws, I've got a question for you. Often when I'm on Twitter or just interacting with the Vainglory community, they say me and you sound very similar. Do you think that's true?
Absolutely not, because I live, in the UK. You've lived a part of your life in Australia. You sound a little bit Australian, so I like to think we sound different, but apparently we are the same person. So imagine that. The same person casting. Best of 5.
And speaking at the same time. It's impressive. I want to know, Twitch chat can vote yeah or vote nay if they think we sound the same. But it's good that we finally get to speak at the same time so people can start to learn the differences in our voices. And this game has a lot of fire potential. I'm really excited to see these team fights because Ozo wants to dive on in and be all in, acro bouncing all over the team fight. But that plays into Petal's game perfectly because she can just land so much splash damage with her spontaneous combustions. Baron wants to dive onto the carry and blow him up with a single blow of his double auto attack, but Sky at the same time also wants to do that as well. So pretty crazy stuff.
Oh, that damage! What? Alright, Ratho first blood. What was that? The jump jets followed by the acrobounce secures himself one. And Raging Donuts, first time in the series, find themselves first blood.
They do, Jaws, and it's pretty good for them because they can get this Sky stacking up and looking to do some damage as well. So really good start for them, looking to do their best to take over the game with a Sky. If Donut can get these early leads in the lane, get him over the Baron as well, then he's going to be in a good spot to try and scale up and continue the pressure game as well.
I mean, right now, Qlash going to have to do a bit better of a job to actually stop Massili's going down. Disowned, one of those heroes, obviously, on the Lyra is going to be able to do that with the Bright Bulwark, but you can imagine, like you mentioned a couple of seconds ago, it's pretty hard when you've got Raph bouncing in your face, Aristocratic jumping in as well with the wolves, and then you've got Donut who can just Suri strike right next to him. In fact, Raph having a little 1v1 with Agony there, just trying to kill a couple of his minions. Does use that trampoline to get a bit of distance, but poke damage being fairly annoying. Acrobounce straight onto the Elder Treant, and that'll be Qlash actually just pushing into their jungle. Raph, in fact, is going to get chased up here. Aristocratic nowhere to be seen. He's actually on the other side of that brush. There's Donut. They actually make the collapse on Agony. Trampoline away. Flask is going to get popped. Elder Treant not being the EU one today. Doesn't root anybody up, but will actually get taken by Massili's, who finds the kill onto the monkey. Raph is going to fall, and now Donut's in a bad place. Goes straight into the toaster, and that'll be Agony picking himself up a kill.
Yeah, it does, and that's a great start in the team fight for the side of Qlash. Being able to dominate it is really good for them. Currently, Aristocratic just trying his best to escape, and he should be able to, but we do see Agony lurking on the sidelines. He's going to dive on in. This is a greedy backport as well. This might just kill Aristocratic.
Yeah, he's in a little bit of an odd situation. Trampoline from Agony, and that will be a kill for Disowned. Qlash finding 3 in about the space of 45 seconds.
That's really, really bad coming out of Aristocratic. You can't afford to make greedy moves like that. It's 9 times out of 10, Jaws, you backport in that bush and you're going to get away with it. But that one time it doesn't happen, it's going to allow for the opponent to snowball. In this case, you're allowing the petal to snowball.
Oh, Masili's getting jumped on again. The Sigil is going to heal him up for the time being. Donut's not letting him go easy, and neither is Aristocratic, refusing to sink his teeth in thus far. Masili's is actually going to get out of the fight rather handily with the help of Disowned. I realise now, Dowsy, you don't normally put donuts in toasters. Probably the wrong analogy to use. I was thinking more of a muffin. You get these things in the or Pop-Tarts, yeah, you get these things in the UK called muffins. They're not like chocolate chip muffin kind of dealios. I don't know what they are. They're like bread,
hot cross
but
buns.
not.
Let's go with hot cross buns.
Yeah, hot cross buns, sure. Me trying to describe like a muffin. I'm going to tweet a picture out later so people don't think I'm insane. Qlash, though, they still found 3 kills, and 1 on each as well is going to be quite important for them. Disown now picking up that fountain. Mercedes just went back to get his Sorrow Blade. Donut's going to be able to secure his as well. But right now, they've got the shove advantage. Mercedes is going to be able to clear these waves so often, and with the Agony pushing up, it's actually going to receive a bangarang to the face. Wrong place, wrong time, as Donut's going to have to come back really fast. There comes the Ion Cannon, only hitting Donut. It actually gets annihilated by Masili's, and this is the time where the Baron pops off. Raf goes in with the Acro Bounce once again. Aristocratic sinks his teeth in, but he does pay for it with his life. But Raf is going to use that 3-ring circus to pick up the kill. Disowned can't quite save the rest of his team. They trade 2 for 2.
They do, 2 for 2. Not a bad team fight result for the side of Raging Donuts here. But every team fight they go even, it becomes even more scarier because the Baron is going to continue scaling up. You see Masili's is very close to finishing his Tension Bow, just sitting 300 gold away from completing that item. With a Sorrow Blade, Tension Bow, his Jump Jet double auto attack is going to pack a punch you don't want to be on the receiving end. So it's going to become a little bit more difficult for Raging Donuts to win these team fights. Raf, Aftershock, only item he has, but look at the amount of gold he has in his inventory. 53,000? That's a lot of gold to be having in your inventory. That means he hasn't spent for a good period of time here, and that is terrible news for Raging Donuts. Having lots of gold jaws is a great thing, you know, and you're always going to be happy that you have a lot of gold. But if it's sitting in your pocket, then it's not being turned into items. There's no damage being earned from that gold, and so whilst it's a huge power spike for Raph because he's just purchased, last team fight could have been won.
Hang on a second, there's the death from above. Mercedes doesn't quite get caught from it, but Raph's going to go straight on top of them with that fortified health, keeping him alive. Mercedes and Agony going fairly low, but Agony taking the brunt of the damage. Aristocratic sinks his teeth in, he finds the kill, goes underneath the turret. Disown can't quite finish him off, and neither can Mercedes. Nice turret dive there from Raging Donuts, and they let themselves a kill.
They do, but Aristocratic will go down. I don't think... Oh, he can get over the wall?
Oh, dash over, there's the portal. Oh, can't escape from a Lyra and the Treant. Disown at least secures that kill on the backside of it.
Yeah, so a 1-for-1 trade in the end, and a bit of chip damage going onto the turret as well. More action.
Do you want to be there, Raph? I don't think you knew, and neither does the monkey. Raph actually goes down. Bright Bulwark, beautifully used by Disown, is going to help secure Masili's yet another kill, sitting at 3-2 as 8 minutes in the game. With the Tension Bow, Dowsy, Baron is starting to look pretty scary, especially when you can chunk turrets like that. It's going to take 1 more auto. First turret is going to go down, and that's going to go over to Qlash.
Yeah, so the Baron being able to scale it up, he has been pretty much unopposed as far as his scaling has been concerned. And another kill goes over towards the side of Qlash, and they're just playing solo queue at this point. They have broken the backs of Raging Donuts in this game. And Raging Donuts are going to be in the back foot for a very long time, Jaws. The entirety of this game is a very long time. Infinite time, you could say, because their composition is all designed around blowing up a Baron, but when you think about it, not all parts of the pieces are capable of doing so. Normally you want a tanky assassin dive the Baron in the form of a laner, such as an Idris, a Rona, perhaps not a Rona as much as a Black Feather, so that you can be tanky and dive onto the Baron and do a good job. Now, Weapon Power Skye can do this, but she requires to be able to stack up a breaking point on the front line. And right now, really, there haven't been any chances for Raging Donuts to do that. Also see a failed engagement coming on through. The Bright Bulwark coming out of Disowned. Really good at shutting down an Ozo if timed well, although there are some interesting interactions with it, such as if you're inside the Bright Bulwark. If you get inside the Bright Bulwark whilst you're acro bouncing, then you can just continue bouncing around, meaning a late Bright Bulwark is pretty ineffective if the acro bouncers have already been lined up. But if you're outside of it or you hit the edge of it, you will get knocked up. So that's something that Raph and the enemy team will keep in mind, is that they can kind of just walk out of the Bright Bulwark if they want to stop the monkey fooling around. Currently, Masili's has that Monaco online. Ponchik Donut has only just finished his Poison Shiv. And so there's a massive item discrepancy between these two carries. Not something that you can really afford to be having at this stage of the game, because it means that the Baron has hit late game before you're even in the mid game. Apparently, it's just going to be a murder of these team fights, you feel.
Well, they might want to find another fight here. Aristocratic going really low already, and in fact, the Iron Clan's going to have to force him out. Raf's going to get a nice 3-ring circus to get all that 4-5 HP, and there's the Acrobats twinned with a Bangarang to isolate Mercilles. He ends up going down, and Raging Donuts are going to be able to clean this fight up, although Agony has still got a lot of damage under his belt. You have to be fairly scared of him, especially as Donut takes a lot from that spontaneous combustion. They're going to go back in. There's the Bright Bulwark engagement like you were talking about, still going to go through with that Acrobounce. He ends up finding the kill once again, and Crystal Sentry will be the focus here for Raging Donuts. They find 2, they find a little extra, and even that gold mine is on the board for them. Only over halfway full, but it's still an extra bounty if they so choose to take it.
Genuinely surprised that Qlash allowed Raging Donuts to engage like that. Mercilles needs to remember that he is still playing Baron and be able to kite back far more effectively. Cheeky Lil still comes through. Add that to your notebook, Jaws. Another captain still for Disowned. Now the gold miner will be started up. Just little by little, taking pieces away from Raf, putting this Ozo further behind. Raf is going towards a Broken Myth second item. There's 2 trains of thought currently with Ozo. You either go Broken Myth if you want extra burst damage, or you go Dragon's Eye if you want sustained fights. And so it really just depends on the enemies you're going up against. Clearly against the Baron, you want as much burst to your combo as possible, so the Broken Myth going to allow that onto the Baron. That's why Raf is going towards it. And if they're able to delete Baron like they did in the previous teamfight, then I reckon it's going to be pretty good for them.
Uh-oh. Qlash now, looking maybe for, well, a poke-style engagement here, but Raf setting up for a big Bangarang, and that's what they did last time, and that's how they win these fights, by isolating Mercilles. And I said in game number 2 that is the Mercilles show, but it turned out it was Agonies, and it's beautiful to see a team that can play around 2 major carries. They're going to go for an engagement here, but the Bright Bulwark is going to stop them. The same with that Death from Above. Iron Cannon doing so much damage. There's the Bangarang. It's going to get blocked by Raf, already sent under half HP, and Mercilles is already disengaged from the fight, so they're at a big advantage here. Mercilles has the range to deal with Raging Donuts' composition. It's just whether they actually so choose to use it. There's the passageway into the bulwark. Acrobounce is going to get blocked by that Bright Bulwark once again. Agony jumping on with the trampoline. In fact, Mercilles jumps into the entire team fight, jumps between all 3 of them, and he's going to be able to just execute Raf and Donut. They end up falling, and now it's Aristocratic on the run. They're going to be able to take this turret as well, Jazzy, but they might just settle for an ace here if they can manage it. Agony can't quite find the last basic attack. In fact, takes too many from that turret. Qlash find 2. Are they going to be able to find the second tier turret as well?
Yeah, far more effective kiting coming out of Qlash. Like mentioned after the previous team fight, all they need to do, kite back, re-engage as soon as the engage has been dealt with out of this monkey, and they are able to do so very easily with Elira, Petal, and Baron. Everyone has great escape ability. The Bright Bulwark can shut things down. You have the extra range available as well with the Portal. If you Bright Bulwark and then Portal out, your enemies can't follow through. They can't go through it. So there's also that little combination to keep in mind as well. But it's getting very scary for the side of Raging Donuts because Mercilles is full damage, has that second Tyrant's Monocle in his inventory. So 4 red items for him. He'll get an Aegis for himself next, which is going to nullify the damage coming out of Raf, as well as allow him to block up any extra stun that might come through. Say he needs to use the jump jets to escape the initial engage, and then he wants to block the Bangarang coming on through, he'll be able to do so. And so Raging Donuts, their win conditions are whittling as we speak, becoming less and less and less. Donut needs to get that breaking point online. Like mentioned, he needs to be able to stack up the breaking point on the Lyra, on the Petal, and then series strike all the way onto the Baron and try and take him out with a couple of auto attacks. That's the only way that Raging Donuts are going to have you know, a consistent method of taking out this Baron. Unless for some reason Raf gets a perfect combination on the Ozo, it's much more easier to do so with the Sky. Fortress will enable them to do so, but remember, a Fortress only has one way in, and that is to go forward.
Well, Death from above and an Acrobats and Bangarang do catch out. Masilis goes extremely low. 3 rings focus on 3 people. There's the Bangarang engagement.
Lovely.
Acrobats to finish him off. That's what we wanted to see, Dowsy. Raph is going to find his way onto Agony as well, using another Acrobats. Just pinball bouncing around. So hard to keep track of him half the time, and just Sophie's just going to snipe him. It's turned into a 2v2. And now Donut's in a lot of trouble as Agony gets the healing from the Sigil. Passageway is going to actually chase up to Aristocratic. And as it looked like a Raging Donuts fight, Qlash turn it around as they completely forgot about Agony's damage.
Yeah, they did. This is going to be Aristocratic escaping, it seems. Oh, he might actually go down. Yep, he roots himself.
Uh-oh, roots himself. EU Trian boys, yep, he's accepted his own fate, going for the little recalls and that'll be Agony. They find the ace in the end, but Qlash with another fantastically well-orchestrated team fight.
Wow. So, beginning of the team fight, Raging Donuts got the combination of dreams. Realistically, a very early Crucible came out of Disowned, allowing for the Bangarang to come out of Wrath. He kind of preemptively timed it, but you know, on 2.10, Reflect block now has a 1.5 second block rather than 1 second, so you kind of got a bit of room for failure, and Disowned, unfortunately, was far too early on the trigger finger. Wrath got the Engage of Dreams, and they were able to take out the Baron, but like you mentioned, then they dived a little bit too deep. They don't have the sustain of a Lyra to keep them in the team fight, whereas Agony does. It allows him to heal up a lot, and like mentioned, underestimating the Petal, love it as well. You know, Petal's voice line, I bet they'll underestimate me, and they always do. They need to find a team fight now, or else this Kraken's going to do a lot of work.
Well, there come the Wolves. Aristocratic already set below half HP. Those Munions exploding. Wrath finds the Bangarang, but this time it's going to go onto Agony. Use that trampoline to get some distance right into the firing range of Masilis. Opens up with the rockets. The spontaneous combustion finally kills Aristocratic. Wrath is going to fall. Same with Donut. That'll be Qlash with an ace, and they've still got a Kraken to work with.
GG to Qlash. There's no way that they can't finish the game right now. Kraken so healthy. Baron just doing 600 damage plus to these turrets with his auto attacks. Look at the crits, it's insane! And once more, Qlash are able to draft a composition that just is very easy to win with, and Raging Donuts win conditions just weren't quite there.
There goes the Crystal, and with that, that'll land Qlash in a 2-1 situation over Raging Donuts. Means it's match point. The next win for them will secure themselves another passageway to get back into the VG8, and that will send Raging Donuts back down to the challengers. It's all up to Qlash now to end it, or can Raging Donuts find the 2 games they need? We'll have to find out, but to break down that Qlash win, we have the 2 guys on the desk.
Thank you very much, guys. Raging Donuts started this series off strong, but now Qlash have managed to not only close the gap, but overtake it 2-1 on the scoreboard right now in favor of Qlash, with a convincing victory coming on through there. But importantly, the start of that game was very messy. We saw a huge amount of kills in the first few minutes.
Yeah, I mean, we expected it to be a very bloody game. We expected both teams to try and be the ones that came out of the gate aggressive and got that early lead. In the end, only one of them can actually get a lead off of it, though, but both teams were definitely fighting and trying to make a statement early on.
Absolutely. And we have a few replays of those early fights that came on through, because honestly, some of these fights were incredibly interesting to watch, and it was very back and forth as well. It wasn't just one team taking a huge advantage to start things off.
Yeah, and it was every time one side got an advantage, the other team just decided to try and answer. But right off the bat, you see Qlash able to find multiple kills using the burst damage from this Baron, and how difficult it is to get away from a Baron and Petal, especially with the composition that Raging Donuts had. Like, they were a very all-in aggressive composition, but if they weren't able to find a kill right off the bat, more often than not, things ended up swinging against them.
Absolutely. And you can see here, Donuts managing to get that one. Now, the next replay we do have was a fight that really turned the game in favor of Qlash a few minutes later on into the game. Also, we were getting towards that Kraken spawn. We started to see that Qlash started to get control of things.
Yeah, and again, a lot of it became about, you know, the acro bounces going in, and you know, when the Ozo goes in, if he goes in too deep, if they don't find an instantaneous kill, you're opening up the doors for the team fight to get turned around. We saw it time and time again where they would get the kill onto Baron, but then all of a sudden you have Agony on this Petal with low health targets. He's able to take them down because he's able to get those Munion seeds planted and get Minions back on his side so that he has the damage to finish off the kills.
Yeah, absolutely. And they managed to chase those kills down and just turn that into a huge advantage that they were able to push further and further in the game and managed to take the victory in the end. Our next three players, again, Qlash, continuing to roll that snowball forward. They managed to get themselves a Kraken and then a fight.
And this is another one of those ones where they go in, it looks very good for them. They start off diving in deep for a kill, but it's just not able to actually secure it. And by the time that they do turn this around, they've taken too much damage. And this Baron pick, I think this was actually very well played by Mercillius. And we always talk about the fact of, does he have other picks besides the Vox and the Kestrel? I think the Baron definitely showing here that he can play this Baron to a very high level of execution.
Yeah, fantastic stuff coming out from Mercillius. And you have to wonder about the draft coming out from Raging Donuts there. It was an interesting one for sure, the Fortress and the Weapon Sky coming on through. But in the end, it didn't really work out for them. So looking towards the draft of game number 4 here, because this is the last game Raging Donuts have if they don't manage to win it. If they can't push this further in the series, they will be knocked out of the challenge battles. Surely we have to see a little bit more of a conventional composition coming out from them now.
I think definitely they need to look to prioritize something like maybe not the Black Feather because you're not going to be able to take the Rona off the board, or do they take the Rona off the board and say, you know what, we're going to ban the Rona first. Now it's on to a clash of do they ban the Black Feather? And if they do, then all of a sudden you have your fair pick of just about anything in the game. You can get whatever captain you want. You can get whatever jungler you want if you feel like that's where the strength lies. So the first ban, I think, is going to be very important in this next draft.
Yeah, and we've seen different first bans and different first picks coming through basically every game so far in this series. So I'm curious to see the direction that these teams go, and also just the way that this draft is evolving, because we've seen very different compositions coming out of both teams every single game.
And the thing that's been most intriguing to me about the drafts from the side of Raging Donuts especially is game number 1, the Churnwalker came through for Qlash, and Raging Donuts didn't seem to have any sort of trouble dealing with it. And then they've been banning the Churnwalker since then, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me that if you're able to handle a hero that a team brings to the table and not really struggle against it whatsoever, that was the most convincing game of this series, and yet they've gone back to banning it time and time again now. And I feel like they need to just leave that open and say, you know what, if they want to draft around the Churnwalker, let them draft around the Churnwalker, because they clearly know how to deal with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's been working out it was working out for them in game 1 at least. We'll see if that'll continue to be the case, whether they are going to continue to ban that hero, but it is going to be banned away by Raging Donuts. They're going to start this one off with the Churnwalker ban once again. So just something that they're clearly not happy to go up against, and then Lyra will be the answer coming out from Qlash.
This does mean that the Black Feather and Rona are available, so I don't think Raging Donuts can afford to take that Black Feather as a first pick, even though they really like the pick. It's with Rona available to be answered with immediately. I don't think you can take that chance. It's more likely or at least what I would like to see them do is go for a captain with this first pick. Just because there's quite a few that are high priority. You can take that Lorelei right now if you want it, and that's exactly what they're going to do. So I like that they're going back to what worked for them in game number 1, though, although I'm still very much going to question the decision to ban away the Churnwalker.
All right, well, we'll see how this one's going to pan out now that they have Lorelei in their grasp once again. Curious to see what they put alongside that. Obviously, in game number 1, in case you missed it, they had a Rhyme and a Black Feather alongside the Lorelei, and that's how they got their first point on the board. We'll see what Qlash are going to do to try and deny that exact same composition, and also what their win conditions are going to be coming into this game.
They're going to grab themselves the Catherine, so you got to figure this is likely to lean towards a ban onto Baptiste for the side of Raging Donuts when it comes back around to them, just to avoid having that combo on them. And this is kind of smart from Qlash, because now, let's say they were worried about the Black Feather coming out, they don't really have to be concerned about it anymore, because they don't have to necessarily ban the Black Feather or the Rona with this ban selection, but they are still going to do it anyway, which is intriguing, because they could have left the Rona open. The likelihood of having Black Feather and Rona on the same team wasn't very high, I think, for the side of Raging Donuts, but obviously, the side of Qlash, they don't want to have to even think about that possibility and ban it away. There's the Baptiste ban coming out. Makes a lot of sense, again, with the Catherine pick already being in place.
Yeah, now Qlash have kind of a hard pick ahead of them right here. You could just lock something like the Vox in for Mercillius, go with that comfort pick, go with something fairly safe, but regardless of what you pick here, you're going to be showing your hand somewhat. But most teams, or a lot of teams, like to go with a captain on this second pick because it doesn't offer too much in terms of what your goal is in the game.
Yeah, I mean, well, typically at this point, you have to reveal something, but you could go for something that can be flexed into the lane or the jungle position just to keep that air of mystery about your composition. But it is going to be a Vox, no mysteries here. Vox is going to go up into the lane for Mercedes.
Absolutely. So we have our laner locked on in for Qlash. Alongside that, Catherine will be the Vox. And now Raging Donuts have to decide what direction they want to go. Obviously, the Rhyme is still available if that's something that they want to go back onto again. That's what they won with in game number 1. But they don't have the Black Feather alongside it this time. Ooh, Flicker locked on in alongside a Lorelei as well. This is going to be an interesting game.
This is likely to be that carry Lorelei that we have heard about aplenty. We have yet to see on the fold. Going up against the Vox, there's a lot of potential there. You can do so much harass with a Lorelei in the early game because of that. Her Piranha Pool, the stun, it leaves that dot damage field on the fold that is so difficult to navigate around. Obviously, Vox shouldn't have too much issue with it because he could just use the Sonic Zoom every time it comes out, but that's then forcing the Sonic Zoom to be used all the time, and he's not going to have that available to try and return damage on the trade. So this is an interesting decision from Raging Donuts, and I could definitely see how it works out in the lane. But once we get later on into the game is where things are going to be, where I'm going to be interested to see how it holds up.
I'm so excited to see this composition coming on through into the game. And I mean, we were saying at the end of that last game, maybe they need to go with something more conventional. Apparently not, because they've locked in that Flicker. This is a bold pick, but if it works out, this could be a beautiful way to keep yourselves alive. It is going to be a Petal as the final pick. Classically, a good pickup into the Krull.
Yeah, and that's exactly why it's there, just to be that counter against the Krull. So a lot of movement speed on the side of Raging Donuts. That's clearly their plan here, is to use that movement speed, get onto targets and stick onto those targets, not allow them to escape. One of the reasons why Petal is good into Krull is because she has the ability to kite away extremely efficiently. But with a Flicker and a Lorelei, that ability to kite is going to be challenged.
Let's talk about the Flicker pick a little bit here, because this is something that's been in Vainglory forever, but very rarely seen, at least in recent history. How do you expect them to play around this Flicker? Like, what is the strategy when you have a Flicker as your captain?
The strategy is to just harass the lane very, very heavily. That's what your goal is when you have a Flicker, because he can sit in the lane, he can be invisible, and then just walk into the lane. You don't know that he's there, and then all of a sudden he appears, the enemy laner starts throwing down their harassment on you, and there's just nowhere for you to go. So if they get the root, if they get the stun to connect while the Flicker is ganking as well, then you throw a Krull on top of it too, just for good measure. These ganks are going to be absolutely deadly from the side of Raging Donuts, but they will need to make these plays happen over and over and over again. If they do let up the pressure whatsoever, that's a window of opportunity for Qlash to get in the game and then not let go.
Yeah, and that's a dangerous situation right now, because Qlash are currently 1-0 up in this series, and if they can manage to get they're 2-1 up in this series, if I can count. If they can get one more game, they will take the series. Hashtag Vainglory8. These two teams are just a singular series from being knocked on out of the challenge battles, and we'll see whether Raging Donuts can climb back in. It's time to pass it over to our casters. It's Jaws and Dowsy.
Mad scientist in Flicker coming on to the fold for what seems to be months and months and months without seeing this here, and I'm happy it's finally here. And I looked up a few stats the other day as well. Flicker is one of the least picked in solo queue right now as well. Recently received a new skin. I'm not sure why people aren't playing it. The skin's beautiful, but Aristocratic taking this one with Donut. You were talking to me just a second ago and saying how strong that combo is.
Oh my goodness, it's a mad scientist combination as we see Aristocratic looking to steal away some camps here. They know he's here, he's taking resonance damage, but he can't find anything, so he's just gonna speed on out and hopefully he can survive.
Might not be able
to,
I don't know. Dissowned's going to come through as well. Mercedes, if he chooses to follow it up, no.
You forget Flicker, he's very quick, and he also slows his enemies. So he has an AoE slow that he can output.
Nope, they're going to go on to Mercedes though. Mercedes is going to take a fair bit of damage, has to dodge out really fast. Aristocrat's going to follow him up. There's the slow you were talking about, but he's going extremely low. Maybe this is going to be Captain First Blood traded. First Blood goes over to Qlash as Mercedes does manage to execute Aristocratic, but Agony gets taken down as well, and Donut picks up the second.
So, how is this composition a mad scientist composition? That's the question. Well, we have a Lorelei who's A, roots you in place and does damage. We have a Flicker who's A, roots you in in place and does damage. They're basically very similar abilities. So, if you can get both of them through at the same time, you're in a good spot. We see the end of the team fight going on out on the replay. They do manage to escape there, but if you are able to land both a Lorelei A and a Flicker A, then there's the pretty long route, and they're both roughly the same size. They both do damage, so that's kind of the mad genius behind it. It is super reliant on you hitting one of those two abilities, so that's where you pair it with something that has a slightly more easier to hit, I guess you could say, CC, the Cruel ultimate. It's going to be a major lockdown. Cruel ults in, then I assume it would be Donut on this Lorelei using his fish food, followed up by the snare coming out of Aristocratic. At that point, you've done enough damage to kill the person. They are truly dead.
Oh, Elder-Trient's going to get started up. Nice stun onto Raph. Actually gets rooted up as well. Mercedes is going to rotate down from lane. Disowned with the plays. Does use that in couple with the Elder-Trient, and that'll be Qlash finding themselves another kill.
Yeah, they certainly do. This early game going to be very difficult for Raph on this this Cruel. Like the Death was saying, and you know, most people in Vainglory know, Pedal pretty good into Cruel, has a lot of ways to deal with a Cruel, so it's going to be very difficult. This is why the Flicker needs to focus on lane aggression. Lorelei lane has a lot of damage available to her. You get 4 damage items very quickly. Typically, it's alternating current into a Broken Myth, into a Clockwork, into a Dragon's Eye. That's a fairly standard Lorelei 4-item build. However, she's not as effective in the lane as she is in the jungle or the captain position, just due to the fact that she actually can get harassed pretty easily in lane. And her fish food, it's kind of like a weakened Scarf Goop. It's not as effective at pushing the lane as you might consider it to be on paper. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
There's the lockdown of CC. Disown gets instantly jumped on, pops the flask as well as that Storm Shield, and we'll be able to get away for the time being. But big cooldown's actually down as well. Her boots did get used. Merciless Pursuit to get out of danger as well. Oh boy, we're already starting to see it. There's they go straight in again. Raph just not letting them sleep. Disown's going to go down. That'll be kill for Aristocratic.
Yeah, they actually stacked their CC there on the beginning onto Disown. That's why he was able to escape. They had chained it a little bit better. They may have been able to get the kill originally, but it didn't matter in the end. Cruel looking for the dive. Doesn't quite find the damage on the smite.
Mercedes a little bit too slippery.
What he's done by doing this, Jaws, is he's allowed for the minion wave to push in, and Radiant Donuts probably could have pushed the turret with fish food, but I guess it was down from burnout, so they didn't want to risk it. Alternating Current is now here, and so Crystal Lorelei, like we mentioned, her passive allows her to get bonus crystal power in combat. When you stand on top of a pool, you get bonus crystal power. So the idea is you get alternating current first, you are able to do a lot of auto attack damage with the alternating current, you step onto a pool, your damage gets amplified even more, and all your abilities is going to do more damage. Her CP ratios are really strong, the barrier becomes even bigger with crystal power, so she can enable someone to carry pretty heavily. Cruel is going to have a massive time in this game. If he's able to get onto a target, then the barrier that can be applied to him is going to nullify this weak matchup that he has into the pedal just a little bit. So it's good to see this. He has his ultimate. He's looking for a stun at the moment. Has been spotted in the bush with a good flare coming out of Disowned, but Flicker is currently unknown to them, so they still can set up some sneaky plays.
Yeah, there they can. Raph just darting around as you would on the Cruel, just gets stunned, however, and is going to just slink away. Agony now rotating towards the lane as well. Trampolines over the wall to get a bit of vision up in that bush. Disown taking a large chunk of damage as well, but Raph determined to actually make something stick here. Spontaneous Combustion actually from Agony. It's an Aristocratic fairly low, but Donut's going to be able to trade that rather handily. Merciless Pursuit does land, pops the boots to be able to get away, as well as that Flask. And Aristocratic, only level 4, mind you, will take a fair bit of damage from Hell's Heart does land. Agony's going going to be the target now. Donut's trying to chase up with the damage, not quite on a pull just yet, but it didn't seem to matter. He finds the first kill in the fight. Aristocratic almost going down here, but he does manage to escape using just the flicker movement speed. Oh, it's so lovely to watch flicker dart around. Dissown's going to get jumped on now as well, and Donut with a continual harass does manage to find the clam stun onto Dissown, but the fish food won't quite be enough.
Yeah, but they've managed to do a lot of damage to the enemy team here, so they can look to try and pressure this turret just a little bit. It's pretty scary stuff. A Catherine stun onto the Lorelei could mean she dies, but the flicker is just providing too much CC and room for Lorelei to be able to clear the wave. So nothing's going to come of it other than a kill, but another cool little interaction is this splashdown, the ability to speed up everyone.
Oh, nice one. So pursuit onto turret. Donut's going to go down. The blaster wasn't even needed. Mercedes manages to help with the kill. Dissown takes credit for it, however, but Raph is actually going to find himself a nice little bit of agony in the jungle, which just solos him out with the help of the Crystal Sentry. Alrighty, guess we're back on the board.
Yeah, that's pretty good stuff coming out in the lane.
Uh-oh,
Flicker versus Fox.
Oh no, the double stun! Stormguard, not quite enough to kill him. Treant's on him as well. Raph gets the snipe for the heal. Dissown doesn't quite find the kill on Raph, who was injured. Did manage to get away.
Yeah, and up in the lane as well. Flicker versus Vox as well. Ended up being a very close brawl, but Massili's just about won it. Now this turret going to take a lot of damage here. Fish food goes out. He should really lay down a splash down for himself to amplify the damage on his fish food. Would just allow for it to do a little bit more damage, and it doesn't matter where you're standing as long as you're on that splashdown. Your abilities are going to do more damage for you, so it's something to keep in mind, especially for Raging Donuts. Is Donuts damage amplification also kind of helps out with this cruel, allows for Raph to stick to his targets, slows them all down as well.
Been spotted over and over again. Aristocratic not having a good game, being spotted. Those flares coming out from Dissown, rumbling his game, but yes, actually going to get jumped on. The fish food doesn't quite land this time around, but it's not going to matter. It seems the beautiful from Hell's Heart does lock him in place. The wait for it from Massili's isn't going to be enough really to engage on. And Agony actually taking the from Hell's Heart. Raph, I thought he used it in a fight. Apparently not. Apparently wasn't even needed to kill Dissown. He just got locked up and rooted in place by what I believe was Aristocratic. And now it's Raging Donuts with the advantage in the lane.
Yeah, they have the advantage. Now they can look to try and push down this turret. See if they're able to do so. Good wave clear really coming out of Massili's. Raging Donuts feel fear.
Oh, they should do at the moment, because yeah, Donut's going extremely low. Dissown's already back from the base. The blast thrower just executes him where he stands, and Qlash pick up another kill. Massili's not scared at all.
No, not at all. Massili's is really just holding his ground, and you can see he's adapted his Vox build as well, and he's doing far more work in this game since he has the Sora Blade for himself. This turret might just go down as well. I'm not sure there's much Aristocratic can do to stop it.
No, I don't think it is. Massili's is just going to shrug him off. He's got a 2-level disadvantage as well. There's the Resonance. He's just going to be able to find the kill if he's not careful. The Reflex block gets popped just in time to save his life. And Dissown, meanwhile, by the way, was actually just distracting Raph in the jungle to make sure he couldn't rotate up. So that'll be the first turret going over to Qlash.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the carry Lorelei. If you are going to play a Crystal Power, she is extremely strong, but I just feel like she doesn't have as much ability to influence the game in the carry position, because it's very difficult for her to land her fish food onto a suspecting target. Much easier to do so from a bush or by a surprise. Allows you to put a hyper carry type laner into that position where they can just get a breaking point, Serpent's Mask, and just be so tanky, sustainable, and really just not die because of the fact that Water War does so much. But right now, it is currently a fairly even game, despite the fact that the one turret has gone over. We haven't really seen much Mooncloak. Oh, okay.
Hang on a second, from Hell's Heart does land. That chain CC isn't going to quite find it. That big blast tremor actually sends Raging Donuts packing, and in fact, a bit away for it also comes out to make sure they can't re-engage. There's Massili, Donut in the front line, just gets annihilated by Massili's. Agony now in a little bit of trouble, gets chased down by Raph, but it is a 2v3 situation at that point, and Raph is just going to get out DPS, and that'll be Massili's with the kill. Qlash looking good coming into game number 4, and they are match point up as well, so full confidence coming into this game.
I'm pretty sure Raph did this during the challenge battles, built Breaking Point on Cruel as the first item. I really don't like the idea of a Breaking Point on Cruel first item, because because of the changes to Breaking Point, now it requires 20 extra weapon power damage to generate a stack. It means you're really not actually getting too much out of the Breaking Point. I think it would have been far more impactful, especially considering the win conditions of the composition of Raging Donuts, to pick up a tension bow, just so that when they do dive on with their crazy stun lock composition, then they're actually going to do a significant amount of damage. Right now, though, Donut finishing that Shatter Glass for himself is his second item. You can see the fish food, when it captures someone, is going to do a lot of burst damage now. So it is a scary prospect. He's going to get a Clockwork for himself next. It's going to allow him to output as many fish foods as possible in a team fight and lay those splashdowns down. His ultimate will also be on a very short cooldown as well, so you can get 2 of them out in a team fight, which is kind of obnoxious, the ability to lay down 2 massive barriers in the midst of a team fight. So Raging Donuts are getting closer and closer to a power spike for themselves. They need to really be careful.
Ooh, nice stun, but it is a 2v3. Masili standing on the pool of piranhas for the moment, but another big wave for it will come out and stop them advancing, at least for the time being. Jasone finds another stun onto Raph. Agony's joined the fight as well. No CC ready to follow up. In fact, it's just a trampoline. CC return back here. That's going to be a big from Hell's Heart. Does land straight on Agony, but they trade it 1-for-1 as Donut goes down already. And now it is only Raph with the damage, trying to chase down Masilis, but the disengage was too strong from Qlash. Raging Donuts, they do pop that Crucible to stay alive. He jumps straight back in, but just gets slaughtered for it. Jasone finds the stun. Masilis finds yet another kill, sitting on the 404. He's not found. He will just push onto this turret. He has been found, Dazzy, is what I should have said. Messed that one up entirely. Aristocratic now getting chunked out fairly heavily, and this will be Qlash with another superb team fight.
It's alright, Jaws. It's we get you. And right now the Flicker's not really having the impact, I guess, that you kind of want to see from a Flicker. You know, Flicker got released a year ago and a couple of days from today, and he had really big impact at Worlds, considering he was the last hero to be released before Worlds. Lorelei's the last hero to be released before Worlds, and so everyone's wondering, is Lorelei going to have the same kind of impact that Flicker did at the 2017 Worlds to be held in Singapore this year? Currently, we're seeing that Donut can output lots of damage, but he's very squishy. He really needs to get himself a Aegis. The one cool thing about Aegis is that it actually does a bit of damage blocking for the Vox as well as the Petal. Due to the fact that Resonance damage does a lot of crystal power damage, you actually can block up a lot of damage coming out of Merciless through that. Now, I said damage 20 times in that sentence, but you know what? It's whatever.
There's a lot of damage. There's a lot of damage coming out of Merciless. They do land a big weight for it once again. From Hell's Heart hits him, but it doesn't matter because Donut is already dead. Qlash find another entry kill again in this fight. And this Raging Donuts, we put the onus on them to engage, but they're just getting kited out here. They're going to jump onto Raph. Aristocratic doesn't really know what to do, kind of running around, but Raph is just going to get chased out. He ends up just sacrificing himself for the good of the team. Raph ends up going back to base, and that'll be Qlash with another turret.
It's quite interesting, you know, to see Donut not really using the ultimate to its full effective. He really needs to be making sure he lands them on himself. Perhaps he's trying his best to keep them ready for the cruel, but he can't afford to allow the Vox to engage onto him like this and then not use the ultimate to save his own life. It's so impactful.
These team fights are so over so quickly. It's hard to keep track of them right now because Qlash, they're going to get engaged on once again, but Raph does find the stun to Masilis, but the smite is just not enough. There's the clan though, is going to be able to stun him up. Fish Food's going to get blocked at least for the second time, and now Aristocratic and Raph are falling low. Donut's going to have to back off as well. Blast Tremor through 3, and now is the time for Qlash to turn the fight completely. Even Parvis picked up mid-fight because why not? Agony trampolining forward. Disown can't quite find the Mercer's pursuit. Another clam hits, and that'll be Agony actually sent back just because those piranhas are starting to rack up. There's the water wall to keep himself alive for the time being. In fact, Raging Donuts going to re-engage, but Masilis is here. Masilis has got the damage. Aristocratic's going to get fallen really low, and that'll be Raph, be the first casualty of the fight. Receives a pull, but it will stop the engagement for the time being. But hey ho, 15 minutes on the clock, and that Kraken is now on the board.
Yeah, I think that Qlash can actually afford to just go for it as well. The health bars are fairly low, but I don't think there's going to be any congestion coming out of Raging Donuts unless Aristocratic decides to do his best to land himself a trap coming out, but even then, it's not going to be in time. The damage coming out of the Petal just too much, and that is a free Kraken at 1530 going over to the side of Qlash. Donut needs to get himself a broken myth ASAP. The Aegis on Mercillius is just taking up so much damage coming out of this Lorelei. One fish food does a lot. If it traps up the Fox, it will chunk him out. But imagine if he had a broken myth, it would be a dead Fox, and that's the difference in these team fights that Raging Donuts so desperately need right now. Raph doing his best to get more damage online. Another heavy steal means he's going towards a Sorrow Blade. Oh, here comes the Mooncloak. They're looking for a sneaky engage.
Here we go. There's the From Hell's Heart. Lands on Mercillius. Blast Jump is going to come out. Silence them all. Mercillius is still alive. Another wave for it to silence them all up again. And Raph is in the front line this time. No sustain, but that water will keep him alive for the moment entirely. However, that ground doesn't hit. The fish food's going a little bit wider. Mercillius just kiting around. Aristocratic is going to go down, but so is the Cruel. Raph falls, and now there's only Donut in the 1v2. Those splash balls aren't going to help you now. He does end up finding the kill on Aristocratic as he lands another fish food, but it's not going to be enough. Qlash, they find the ace, they find a double. The Kraken still marching on the base, and Raging Donuts, they're going to lose their entirety of their crystal and their turrets as well, it seems.
Yeah, this is devastating for Raging Donuts. Down 2 games means that Qlash will be taking the 3rd one.
Qlash, they're going to end it right here, right now. Raging Donuts, they had their chance, but they're going to not get knocked down to the challengers. Welcome to VGL. Welcome back, I should say, as Qlash get another shot at the VG8. They still have to run through the gauntlet, though, Dowsy. It's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, they certainly do. Qlash losing to Team K so early on in the challenge battles means that they are now running a gauntlet back towards the Vainglory8. They've defeated the Raging Donuts veterans such as Raph and Donut here to keep their position. But next up will be Norm Pisani, the #1 seed here in the European Vainglory League Challenger Series. And I think it was perhaps just a little bit too early for a carry Lorelei. Donut's mechanics just didn't seem to be tip-top tippity, which we usually expect from him. A super mechanical player, usually one of the best when it comes to these super mechanical heroes. But since it's so new, perhaps needed a bit more time to develop. Raging Donuts just weren't quite able to make the dots connect.
Well, it's always nice to see a showcase of the new hero. We saw a captain, we saw a lane, but this time it didn't work out. Like you said, Qlash, they do advance, but we'll throw it over to the desk now to break down the Qlash series win.
Qlash have taken it, and once again, we always talk about Mercillius getting his Vox 7-0-6 final scoreline. That is how you have a pretty nice performance on a Vox right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's what we expect from Mercillius when he gets the Vox. You expect him to have a strong showing. That's exactly what they were able to do here. And on the side of Raging Donuts, they were just never really able to get the damage onto him, even though they had all of this engagement, all this movement speed that's meant to stick onto a target. They still were unable to actually stay onto Mercillius in any of these fights.
Honestly, it felt like they didn't quite have the damage required as well to actually finish off the kills during these fights. So we can take a look at a couple of the replays, and especially in the early game, it was very similar to what happened last game as well, where we're just trading back and forth between these two teams with no one getting too significant of an advantage.
Yeah, and again, it started off looking like it was going to be pretty good. You know, they had the damage early on, but that's the thing about this composition that Raging Donuts put together is early on, yes, they have a lot of damage because the base numbers are there, but once you start looking towards the later game and the scaling, it's the scaling damage just isn't really as impactful for them as it is for their opponents. And especially with this Kroll build, going for the breaking point as your only offensive item for such a long time in this game, you're relying on just the damage coming out from the carry Lorelei, and Lorelei was just getting focused so heavily in these fights that she had to move so far away and be so withdrawn from the fights that all of a sudden Elahawk isn't able to have that damage that you need in the middle of these skirmishes. You know, he ends up having to do a lot of guesswork at where to try and put down his abilities, and if he guesses wrong, all of a sudden there's no damage coming out whatsoever.
Yeah, and then in that situation, things start to fall apart very, very quickly. Now, our next replay is around 9:50. We saw a double kill coming on through for the likes of Qlash, I believe, but it was Raging Donuts, the aggressors, to start the fight.
And that's how it had been for most of the game. They were trying to start things off, but again, you see, once they have to start kiting backwards, Lorelei isn't able to stand on her pools, isn't able to have those empowered basic attacks, which do so much damage when you are this Crystal Route. Like, it does do a lot of work, but you need to be able to have that empoweredness. You need to be able to be fighting where you choose and not where your opponents choose.
Absolutely. In this game, the kind of overarching storyline, very similar to Game 3.